Chapter 1262. Ha ha ha. What an arrogant brat. Gong Sun Yin laughed instead of getting angry. He looked at Xiao Chun with disdain and said, "You merely got rid of that bastard Situwuji. How dare you act so presumptuously in front of me? You're simply courting death." Before he finished speaking, Gong Sun Yan's body shook, and he instantly revealed his martial venerable perfection realm cultivation. He leaped into the air and swooped down towards Xiao Chun. He ruthlessly struck out with his palm, clearly intending to kill Xiao Chun on the spot. A thick demonic energy, mixed with the whistling sound of the air breaking, approached. Xiao Chun's eyes narrowed, and he quickly determined Gong Sun Yan's strength. This old thing was indeed not simple. Although he looked like he was only at the martial venerable perfection realm, in reality, he was already on the verge of breaking through. It was no wonder that Situ Qitian was far from being his match. "Old bastard, I think you've been in seclusion for too long. Your thinking has long become outdated." Xiao Chun sneered and looked at the approaching Gong Sun Yin mockingly. "Now that the entire inner martial world is under my control, why wouldn't I dare to be presumptuous? You'd better go back and be a coward. Don't come out and find trouble for yourself." Faced with Gong Sun Yan's attack, Xiao Chun had no intention of dodging. After he finished speaking, he even had the time to let out a long yawn. Then, he casually struck out with his palm to meet Gong Sun Yan's palm. Bang! In the blink of an eye, both of their palms collided. Miss Xing stood at the side with an anxious expression. Her hands were twisted like fried dough twists, and her heart was in her throat. She could clearly feel that Gong Sun Yan's strength had definitely surpassed Situ Qitian's by too much. It might even be more than the martial venerable perfection realm. Thus, she was worried about Xiao Chun's reckless action. However, after the two of them landed on the ground, Miss Xing suddenly discovered that Gong Sun Yan's face had turned deathly pale, and he was panting heavily. On the other hand, Xiao Chun had his arms crossed, and a smile on his face as if nothing had happened. He was even humming a little tune, looking very relaxed. With this comparison, little girl Xing knew that Gong Sun Yin was definitely not Xiao Chun's match. Her heart finally calmed down, and her expression relaxed quite a bit. "Master, how are you feeling?" Elder Sun also saw the clues and quickly ran over. He carefully supported Gong Sun Yin and stared at Xiao Chun vigilantly. He was afraid that Xiao Chun would take advantage of Gong Sun Yan's injury to launch a sneak attack. "The one with the surname Sun, isn't your master's strength a little too weak?" Xiao Chun whistled and casually teased. "Master Xiao, I haven't even used my full strength yet." But he's already panting like a bull. What kind of grand supreme elder of the #1 evil sect in Wulin? Is that a lie? He's simply a piece of trash. Although that was what Xiao Chun said, he thought to himself that it was a close shave. If he had not been brought there by the Bay's spiritual beast, and suffered the lightning tribulation, thereby benefiting from the misfortune and breaking through, he would have had to put in a lot more effort to deal with the Grand Supreme Elder. "Xiao Chun, Master Xiao, as the saying goes, one should be lenient wherever possible. Since you've already taken advantage of me today and Qi Tian sect has already made Xing Gongzi the sect leader, can you let my master live?" Elder Sun had no choice but to lower his voice and say, "I promise to take him away immediately and never step foot into Qi Tian sect again." Elder Sun also knew that the situation was already hopeless. Even Gong Sun Yin, whom he had infinite respect for, was not a match for Xiao Chun. There was no point in staying here any longer. "Bastard." When Gong Sun Yin heard Elder Sun's words, he immediately broke free from Elder Sun's supporting arm, stretched out his hand, and directly slapped Elder Sunday. He angrily scolded. Open Heaven sect relied on this old man's hard work to achieve today's achievements with great difficulty. But you, with just a few words, you want to hand it over to others? This old man will definitely not leave. If you want to leave, then leave by yourself. "But master, right now we are not a match for Xiao Chun. Staying here." Elder Sun still wanted to say a few more words, but Xiao Chun was too lazy to listen to their conversation. Without waiting for him to finish, he directly interrupted. "Enough, the two of you stop acting. If you want to live, honestly answer a few of my questions. If the answers satisfy me, this young master can consider sparing 1-2 lives." Xiao Chen still wanted to use Gongsun Yen to find out more about the cultivation world. Naturally, he would not easily kill him. Apart from this old thing should have some other value. After all, little girl Xing had just become the sect leader, and there were many things that she was still clueless about. She had to let elder son and Gongsun Yen help her sort things out. Wishful thinking. Gongsun Yen immediately straightened his back and put on an inviolable expression. He said in a serious tone, "Little brat, this old man admits that my strength is not as high as yours. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't think that you can get any benefits from this old man. Let me tell you, this old man is also a person who has seen wind and waves." Gongsun Yen still wanted to put on a brave front and display his unyielding spirit. However, halfway through his words he felt his vision blur. Then he suddenly received a slap to the face. The slap made him dizzy and see stars. Before Gongsun Yen could even react, he was once again kicked away by Xiao Chen. His whole body fell backwards and landed on the ground like a wild goose falling on the sand. Then he was immediately pressed down by Mount Tai. He was hit so hard that he almost died. Seeing that Gongsun Yen hadn't even finished speaking before he was beaten up by Xiao Chen without any ability to resist, elder son was scared silly. After a long time his body trembled and he recovered. He hurriedly ran over, but didn't dare to pull Gongsun Yen away. He could only beg politely, "Hero Xiao, please don't hit me. Let's talk this out." Xiao Chen heavily punched Gongsun Yan's stomach again. Then he stood up and sneered, "You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. If you said that earlier, you wouldn't have to suffer this beating." Gongsun Yan's eyes rolled back, and he lay on the ground, speechless for a long time. Xiao Chen's beating had made him lose all his temper. Now he was as obedient as a rabbit. Seeing that he had finally beaten Gongsun Yen into submission, Xiao Chen stared at him condescendingly and asked, "Let me ask you, what is the plan to enter the world of cultivators? And where are the Hong and Song families of the internal Wulin? I heard that they have set up a world of cultivator sacrifice. What is that for? Tell me everything you know. If you hide anything, you know what will happen to you." Cough, cough, cough. Gongsun Yen coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood and struggled to get up. He also knew that if he didn't answer Xiao Chen's questions today, it would probably not end well. Chapter 1263. In desperation, Gongsun Yen endured the pain in his body and said, "Originally, the world of cultivators was only a rumor in the martial arts world. But later, someone accidentally found a way to enter the world of cultivators and rushed in. That person's strength was originally outstanding, and after a few years, he became even more powerful. He was invincible, so everyone yearned for that place." Gongsun Yen honestly explained the matter of the world of cultivators. After listening, Xiao Chen nodded. He naturally knew that the person Gongsun Yen was talking about was the supreme sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect, Situ Haotian. As for the other information about the world of cultivators, Gongsun Yen and Elder Sun had more or less the same. It was nothing more than the fact that he wanted to obtain the cultivation resources of the world of cultivators and improve his strength. But Situ Haotian had set up many obstacles and obstructions, and his strength was far greater than Gongsun Yan's. He had no other choice but to hide his strength and bide his time. He planned to sneak into the world of cultivators when the time was right. As for the Hong and Song families, Gongsun Yen pondered for a while and continued. Both of them are relatively secretive clans. They don't have much contact with the outside world. Ordinary people in the martial arts world may not know of the existence of these two clans. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. No wonder not only Tang Qianling didn't know anything, but even the cultivators on the Venerable Realms Pier didn't know of the existence of the Hong and Song families. However, although their clans are relatively small and are far inferior to the three great clans and Awakening Heaven sect, they have an extremely mysterious cultivation method. Moreover, the venerable experts that they cultivate are several times stronger than other venerable experts of the same level. Gongsun Yen sighed and said helplessly, even he himself couldn't understand why the Hong and Song families were so powerful. They were all venerable experts, So why were the people of the Hong and Song families so powerful? If it weren't for another group of people restraining the Hong and Song families, as well as the development of the small clans that had submitted to them, and if it weren't for the fact that these people were so low-key, the people who ruled the martial arts world might have already changed hands. Oh, it's just a little stronger. It's no big deal. Xiao Chen shrugged, skipped this topic, and asked, "You'd better talk about the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world. You should know about it, right? Do you know what they used as sacrifices?" Since the members of the Hong and Song families were cultivators, it was normal for them to be stronger than ordinary cultivators. Xiao Chen himself was originally like this, so he didn't take it to heart. What he was most concerned about now was the issue of the sacrifice. After all, the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect are very mysterious. Most of the knowledge about them in the martial arts world is limited to rumors. No sect or family dares to provoke them. Of course, they are usually more restrained and won't meddle in the affairs of other sections. Gong Sunyin shook his head. Obviously, he knew very little about the two sections. What Immortal Cultivation Sect? Ghost Cultivation Sect? They were just talking about the Hong family and the Song family. Why did they suddenly bring up two random sects? Are you trying to fool me? Or have you become stupid after being beaten by me just now? Do you want me to help you straighten it out again? Suddenly hearing these two unfamiliar terms, Xiao Chen immediately frowned. He clenched his fist and waved it in front of Gong Sunyin, asking unhappily, "Ah, so you don't know?" Gong Sunyin was stunned and asked subconsciously, "What? If I don't know, are you going to make up a story?" Xiao Chen stared at Gong Sunyin's expression and asked coldly, No. Let me first describe the situation of these two sects to you." Gong Sunyin hurriedly waved his hand, stopping Xiao Chen's further action, and then explained, "In the martial arts world, most of the sects belong to the Martial Cultivation Sect and the Devil Cultivation Sect. There are sects and families, but the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect are exceptions. They are neither Martial Cultivation Sect nor Devil Cultivation Sect, but they have other cultivation methods." "You mean, the Hong family and the Song family belong to the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect respectively?" Xiao Chen's eyes narrowed. It shouldn't be. The names of these two sects sounded a little confrontational, but the last time he saw in the Venerable Secret Realm, the relationship between these two families seemed to be quite good. No, the Hong family and the Song family belong to the Immortal Cultivation Sect. This sect is formed by some unknown small families in the martial arts world, and these two families are the leaders of this sect. Gong Sunyin paused for a moment, and then continued. As for the Ghost Cultivation Sect, it is formed by some evil cultivators. Their leader is called Shishan Giant Bull, and he is an extremely powerful expert. Shishan Giant Bull? Xiao Chen was shocked. His first guild mission in Songning City was to kill an evil cultivator, and his master who came to seek revenge was a guy called Shishan Old Devil. Later, Xiao Chen encountered evil cultivators with names starting with Shishan one after another. At that time, he speculated that these people might belong to the same sect. He didn't expect to hear this name again today. It seemed that this Ghost Cultivation Sect was their base camp. Yes, Shishan Giant Bull is the most powerful existence in the Ghost Cultivation Sect. Gong Sunyin naturally didn't know what Xiao Chen was thinking in his heart. He nodded and said, "Both the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect have their own unique cultivation methods, so their strength is much higher than that of ordinary martial cultivators and evil cultivators. However, these two sects have different ideologies, so they often fight with each other, which consumes a lot of energy." "What the hell? I didn't expect the martial arts world to be so deep," Xiao Chen murmured. However, it's also fortunate that this is the case. If it weren't for the fact that they were fighting each other so fiercely, the inner martial world would have fallen into their hands long ago with their profound strength. Gong Sunyin sighed and lamented. "Since they are so powerful, haven't you sects ever considered forming a group to destroy them? I remember that you martial cultivators and evil cultivators have always been very disgusted with evil cultivators, right? Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and asked lightly. However, Xiao Chen immediately figured it out. Based on the temperament of these people, they must have tried something similar. However, from the looks of it now, the result was bound to end in failure. After all, ordinary cultivators and cultivators were not on the same level. There was no comparison at all. Even if a group of ordinary cultivators went there, they wouldn't be able to pose any threat to cultivators. Sure enough, Gong Sun Yin smiled helplessly and said, "Why not? Back then, Master, Situ Haokong gathered all the sects of the devil cultivation sect in the martial arts world and wanted to wipe out the ghost cultivation sect in one fell swoop. In the end, when they just arrived at the enemy's territory, before they had time to set up camp, they killed most of their people. Even he himself was seriously injured." Chapter 1264. Is that true? Then what happened to him? As Xiao Chen asked, he was secretly shocked. Could it be that there were cultivators among those evil cultivators? If Gong Sun Yin wasn't lying, then there would be big trouble. It should be known that ordinary cultivators were no match for evil cultivators of the same level. After all, evil cultivators' cultivation methods were cruel and tyrannical. The evil techniques they used were also strange and unpredictable. Their explosive strength was much higher than that of ordinary cultivators. If there were cultivators among them, then it meant that there was basically no one who could resist them. If this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Later on, Situ Haotian recovered from his injuries with great difficulty. He felt that this battle was an unforgettable shame, so he decided to take a risk and go to the world of cultivators. He wanted to see if he could obtain more strength. Gong Sun Yan's voice was somewhat low. It was obvious that he didn't want to recall this part of the past. "Oh, I heard that he came back later, right? Then did he have another showdown with the ghost cultivation sect?" Xiao Chen asked as he rubbed his chin. Gong Sun Yin curled his lips and answered reluctantly. "About 20 years ago, Situ Haotian came back once. He thought that he had obtained strength in the world of cultivators and could easily defeat Shishan Giant Ox. However, after he came to challenge them, apart from killing a few low-level evil cultivators, he could only fight to a draw with Shishan Giant Ox. He was helpless and could only return empty-handed. So he was ashamed and couldn't face the people of your sect, so he chose to leave?" Xiao Chen asked with great interest. Who knows what he was thinking? Gong Sun Yin suddenly flew into a rage. He gritted his teeth and said, "He didn't tell us the reason and just ran away. I don't know if he died of guilt, or if he took his concubine to live in seclusion in the world of cultivators and live happily ever after." At the mention of Situ Haotian's name, Gong Sun Yin had a belly full of anger. This guy had obtained strength, but he didn't allow others to enter the world of cultivators to advance. He even set those strange rules. Gong Sun Yin didn't know if he was crazy, but it made Gong Sun Yin very unhappy. Hearing Gong Sun Yan's words, Xiao Chen's face became a bit gloomy. He didn't care whether Situ Haotian could defeat the giant ox or not, but Gong Sun Yin actually insulted his mother, saying that she was Situ Haotian's concubine. Xiao Chun hated people who talked about his parents the most in his life. Fortunately, elder son, who was standing to the side, had sharp eyes. He noticed that Xiao Chen's expression had become very unsightly. After pondering for a moment, he understood the reason. He hurriedly whispered a few words into Gong Sun Yan's ear. "Master, that hero Xiao Chun is Xiao Feng's biological son. He is also the son of the woman that Situ Haotian has a crush on." "Ah, this." Gong Sun Yin was stunned for a moment. He felt a gust of cold wind blowing over, and his whole body shivered. His back suddenly became cold. He touched it with his hand, and found that his back was completely soaked with sweat. Gong Sun Yin felt a strong sense of danger when he saw Xiao Chen staring at him coldly. He hurriedly said apologetically, "Little friend Xiao, about that, we're all working hard to enter the cultivation world. I'm very sorry about what happened to your parents, but this was all Situ Haotian's despicable actions. I'm only his subordinate. You can't blame it all on me, right? Oh, according to what you said, this matter should be blamed on me and my parents being unlucky?" Xiao Chen laughed coldly and said, You can only blame my mother for being too careless, catching the eye of that foolish old sect master of yours. You can only blame my father for being too careless, getting captured by the current sect master for no reason. You can only blame me for being too careless, getting targeted by you. You have no choice but to chase me down and kill me, right? No, I didn't. Gong Sun Yin was dumbfounded. He just wanted to shirk his responsibility. Why did he feel that something was wrong when he listened to Xiao Chen's words? I think you are itching for a beating. You want me to beat you up to loosen your muscles and bones. Only then will you come to your senses. Xiao Chen thought that his parents might all be suffering, and his heart became more and more upset. He looked at Gong Sun Yin in front of him, and felt even more disgusted. He could not help but clench his fists and take 2 steps forward. He knocked Gong Sun Yin down with 1 punch, and then pounced on him. Ouch, it hurts. Master Xiao, please don't hit me. I don't mean to blame your parents. It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Gong Sun Yin had no time to dodge. He could only passively defend against the punches and kicks that fell on him like raindrops. He secretly cursed his bad luck. Although Xiao Chen only used ordinary punches and kicks, when they hit Gong Sun Yan's body, Gong Sun Yin felt unbearable pain. No matter how hard he tried to defend, it was useless. If he had not tried his best to protect a few vital parts of his body, he might have been beaten into a cripple. Naturally, Xiao Chen did not care about Gong Sun Yan's screams. He continued to beat Gong Sun Yan, to vent the long-suppressed resentment and anger in his heart. After beating Gong Sun Yan for half an hour, Xiao Chen's anger finally dissipated. He stopped and looked at Gong Sun Yan condescendingly. He said coldly, "In order to enter the world of cultivators, you tried everything you could. This is not a big deal. But you actually took my father away, and sent people to deal with me. This is your fault." Hee, great hero Xiao, you can't say that. I didn't actually want to harm you after that. I just ordered people to protect you. Gong Sun Yin struggled to get up and said with a smile, his face bruised and swollen. Old fart, you still have the nerve to say that? If it weren't for this young hero's intelligence and strength, I would have been killed by you a long time ago. Even the grass on my grave is taller than me now. Xiao Chen glared at him fiercely and said angrily, Yes. Master Xiao is very lucky. How could you die so easily? Gong Sun Yin did not dare to refute. He could only put on a bitter face and smile apologetically. He also secretly glared at Elder Sunday. The meaning of this glare was obvious. Gong Sun Yin was reprimanding Elder Sunday. Why didn't you explain the situation earlier? You made me get beaten up again for nothing. And I don't even have a place to reason with. You are really too blind. Feeling the anger and resentment in Gong Sun Yan's eyes, Elder Sun felt a little helpless. Master, who told you to speak nonsense? You should at least wait for me to finish introducing Xiao Chen's identity. Once you know the ins and outs of the situation, it won't be too late for you to explain yourself. Alright, don't talk about these useless things. Xiao Chen waved his hand impatiently and said, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you now. Immediately go and arrange for the person in charge of the Immortal Cultivator sect and the Ghost Cultivator sect to come here. I want to ask them personally what method is needed to allow people to enter the world of cultivators safely. Chapter 1265. Xiao Chen had already thought it through. Since Gong Sun Yin had some understanding of these two sects, he might as well let him run errands for them. There was no need for Xiao Chen to ask around and save a lot of time. At this, Hero Xiao, you may not know much about the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects. When Gong Sun Yin heard this order, he immediately revealed a difficult expression. He hesitantly said, They've always been arrogant and looked down on the other martial arts and demonic cultivators in the martial arts world. Even if I invite them, I'm afraid they won't listen to me. This request was really difficult for Gong Sun Yin. After all, the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects were very arrogant. Even if Situ Haoyan personally invited them, they might not be willing to come. I don't care about this, you think of a way yourself. Xiao Chen casually waved his hand and glanced at Gong Sun Yin. I'll give you 1 day. If you can't find them in 1 day, then I'll take your dog life. There's no point in keeping you alive anyway. What do you think? After saying that, Xiaochun shook his fist in front of Gong Sun Yan. Then, he turned around and whispered a few words to Miss Xing afterward. He mounted the Bei's spirit beast and sped towards the teleportation formation. Since there was nothing else for him to do here, and Cheng Menjing and the others were still guarding the array, Xiaochun planned to bring the girls into Awakening Heaven Gate and settle them down. Jia Muzin had also been out for a long time, so he should go back to take care of his family's affairs. He couldn't stay outside for a long time with Xiaochun. Seeing Xiaochun disappear into the horizon, Gong Sun Yin and Elder Sun looked at each other in dismay. They were very depressed. Xiaochun had given them a difficult problem. How could he invite those two secluded sects to come out in such a short time? Gong Sun Yin and Elder Sun did not dare to escape. Firstly, they had nowhere to go. Secondly, there were too many people in the martial arts world who hated Awakening Heaven Gate. Once they left, they would probably be chased by their enemies endlessly. The two of them first asked little Miss Xing to disperse the crowd of disciples standing foolishly in the plaza. Then, after a careful discussion, they finally managed to come up with a plan. Gong Sun Yin first sent someone to pass a message to the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect. He lied that he had found the perfect way to enter the Immortal Cultivation world, and that the test was successful. He had already sent his subordinates over. Then, he claimed that he was willing to share the results with the two sections. However, he needed each of them to send someone to Awakening Heaven Sect to discuss the follow-up matters. Although this statement was a little unrealistic in Gong Sun, Yin also felt that it was slightly inappropriate. There was no other way. At least, he did not think that he was lying. After all, they had indeed sent the cyborgs into the Immortal Cultivation world. Even the current former sect leader of Awakening Heaven Sect, Situ Qitian, had followed them in. It was just that they did not know the results for the time being. After receiving the news, the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect attached great importance to it. After all, this time, they were personally invited by the Supreme Elder of Awakening Heaven Sect. Moreover, they were indeed studying whether there was any other way to successfully enter the Immortal Cultivation world other than offering human sacrifices. They were in a state of panic. They did not expect the opportunity to take the initiative to send itself to their door. On the other hand, the Immortal Cultivation Sects and the Ghost Cultivation Sects were also quite vigilant. After they received the news, they held a meeting in their sections. They wanted to determine what was going on and what Gong Sun Yan's purpose was. However, after discussing for a long time, the two sects could not figure out why Gong Sun Yin wanted to do this. Although the news seemed to be very suspicious, they were not willing to miss this opportunity. In the end, after thinking about it, they decided to send people to Awakening Heaven Sect to see the specific situation before making a decision. Early the next morning, the two people in charge of the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect rushed to Awakening Heaven Sect with their subordinates. The person sent by the former was the old master of the Song family, Song Weizong, while the person sent by the latter was the great elder of the Ghost Cultivation Sect, West Mountain Mad Demon. Both of them were influential figures in their respective sections. West Mountain Mad Demon of the Ghost Cultivation Sect arrived at Awakening Heaven Sect first. As soon as he was led into the living room, he heard a series of footsteps behind him. He turned his head slightly and glanced with the corner of his eye. He found that Song Weizong of the Immortal Cultivation Sect had also arrived. "Hey, old ghost Song. I didn't expect it to be you. A few years ago, you were hit by Junyo's sect leader. I thought you were already dead. I didn't expect your old bones to be so tough. You're still struggling at death's door." West Mountain Mad Demon sneered. He didn't even bother to turn his face back as he sneered. In West Mountain Mad Demon's memory, Song Weizong had once led a group of disciples of the Immortal Cultivation Sect to encircle and annihilate the Ghost Cultivation Sect. In the end, he was suddenly attacked by his sect leader, Junyo, and was hit right in the heart. He almost died on the spot. That encirclement and annihilation failed miserably. West Mountain Mad Demon still remembered the panicked scene of the group of little ghosts of the immortal cultivation sect carrying Song Weizong back in a panic. It seemed that Song Weizong had been rescued. Finally, this immortal cultivation sect still had some ability. Before your ghost cultivation sect is completely eradicated, I, Song Weizong, will certainly not die easily. Song Weizong snorted coldly. Then you have to be careful. If one day, lightning falls from the sky and strikes you to death, don't blame me for warning you. West Mountain Mad Demon sneered with a faint smile. I'm too lazy to talk to you about this kind of glib talk. Song Weizong glared at him and warned him with a murderous look. After you go back, tell that Junyo to be careful. Don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll definitely make him die without a burial place. Song Weizong was obviously unwilling to talk to West Mountain Mad Demon. After saying this, he turned around and ordered the disciples of Awakening sect to pass the message. I think you can't wait for this day. West Mountain Mad Demon retorted, unwilling to be outdone. Seeing that Song Weizong ignored him, he curled his lips and strolled around the living room. After Song Weizong sent the disciples of Awakening sect away, West Mountain Mad Demon rolled his eyes and pretended to be careless. I heard that in order to prepare for the opening of the immortal cultivation world, your immortal cultivation sect specially found a lot of women with spiritual chi from the secular world. Among them, there was a top-grade girl with a mysterious constitution. It seems that she was snatched from our ghost cultivation sect. Do you know about this? West Mountain Mad Demon had only received the news a few days ago. He heard that in order to capture a certain woman with spiritual chi in Songning City, the West Mountain Old Man had specially brought his disciples from the secular world to capture her. Chapter 1266. In the end, the ghost cultivation sect did not expect that the two of them would have a bad start. Not only did West Mountain Elder lose his life, but even the little girl, who was supposed to be in his hands, was also snatched away. Only Son Abayo managed to escape with great difficulty to report the news. What a bunch of trash. Are you talking like a human? What do you mean by snatching it away? Song Weizong frowned and said disapprovingly, even if we want to let people participate in the sacrifice, we have to ask for the consent of the person involved in advance. Unlike you ghost cultivation sect, who are worse than animals, you run into the secular world and casually capture those defenseless people. Song Weizong's tone was filled with deep disgust. Obviously, he was extremely dissatisfied with the ghost cultivation sect's approach. You're just using some sanctimonious words to gain the sympathy of those inexperienced little girls, and then promising them some money or cultivation as a lure. West Mountain Mad Demon laughed loudly, his voice full of contempt. Do you really think I don't know? What do you know? Song Weizong immediately retorted. We let them choose voluntarily. If they are unwilling, we will naturally not force them. West Mountain Mad Demon snorted from his nostrils and sneered unscrupulously. Forget it. Coercion and temptation are two means to achieve the same goal. In essence, what is the difference between you and the ghost cultivation sect? You actually have the nerve to laugh at us. Your immortal cultivation sect is simply too hypocritical. Song Weizong was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to rush over and teach West Mountain Mad Demon a lesson. However, he was stopped by a disciple of the Awakening Heaven sect who rushed over. The disciple felt the waves of killing intent echoing in the reception hall. He first panted a few times, then swallowed his saliva, braced himself, and stood between the two of them. He carefully reported, "Two distinguished guests. The Supreme Elder has been waiting in the conference room for a long time. I hope that the two of you can temporarily move to the conference room for a discussion. If there is anything else, we can talk about it later." Since the disciple of the host who invited them had said so, Song Weizong naturally could not continue to argue with Shishan Mad Demon. He could only glare at him angrily. Then under the guidance of the disciple, he turned around and walked toward the conference room. Mad Demon Shishan snorted disdainfully and looked at Song Weizong's back with a gloomy smile. Then, he put away the evil aura on his body and followed the two of them to the conference room unhurriedly. Pushing open the door of the conference room, the two of them walked in one after another. They originally thought that they would see Grand Elder Gongsun Yen of Awakening Heaven sect on the main seat, but when they raised their heads, they were stunned to see Gongsun Yen standing obediently to the side, and a handsome young man sitting on the main seat. At this moment, the young man was sitting with his legs crossed, holding a cup of tea with a leisurely look on his face. He had no intention of standing up to greet them. It seemed that he didn't care about the two of them at all. Beside the young man, there was another fair-skinned man sitting there silently. However, Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were both experienced cultivators, so they could tell that there was something wrong with this man. It was obvious that he was a woman dressed as a man. Please take a seat, the two of you. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come. Awakening Heaven sect is deeply honored. I represent the sect master to express my gratitude to the two of you. Gongsun Yen bowed slightly as thanks. There's no need for formalities. Elder Gongsun must know why we are here, right? Song Weizong waved his hand and looked around the conference room. Other than the two sitting young men and Gongsun Yen, there was no one else. He couldn't help but ask in surprise. I wonder why the Awakening Heaven sect master isn't here? Is he preparing materials to enter the immortal cultivation world? Hee. Song family master doesn't need to be anxious. Let me first introduce you. Gongsun Yen made an inviting gesture and let Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan take their seats. Then, he respectfully pointed at Xing Gongzi and said, "This is the new sect master of our Awakening Heaven sect, Xing Gongzi." Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were stunned when they heard this. They didn't bother to move their feet and looked at the fair-skinned little brother in confusion. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Gongsun Yen felt that their surprised reactions were quite normal. Without waiting for them to ask, he immediately answered, "Because our former sect master, Sitachi, had important matters to attend to, he could no longer continue to manage the affairs of Awakening Heaven sect. Therefore, a few days ago, he specially passed the position of sect master to Xing Gongzi. Now Xing Gongzi is in charge of Awakening Heaven sect." Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were still very surprised. Awakening Heaven sect was an outstanding demonic sect in the inner martial arts world. How could the sect master be changed just like that? Moreover, they didn't inform the other sects of this news in advance. Could it be that there was some unknown inside story? Besides, since Xing Gongzi, who was disguised as a man, was the sect master of Awakening Heaven sect, why wasn't she sitting in the main seat, but another kid that they had never seen before? What was that guy doing here? The other one is. Gongsun Yen saw the puzzled eyes of the two people. When he was about to introduce Xiao Chun to them, he hesitated a little. Xiao Chun suddenly took the initiative to introduce himself. "Oh, I'm the personal bodyguard of Xing Gongsun. I'm also an assistant driver, accountant, administrative, and so on. My nickname is Ajian." Gongsun Yen suddenly had a few black lines on his forehead. He didn't understand what Xiao Chun was up to, but since he had said so, he couldn't directly refute it. He could only nod silently with a strange expression on his face. The two people on the opposite side looked at each other and were even more puzzled. How could a small bodyguard and assistant sit in the main seat so openly? What was the background of this guy called Ajian? Didn't they agree to discuss a way to enter the immortal cultivation world? Why did such a person suddenly appear out of nowhere? Turning around, the two saw that Xing Gongsun didn't raise any objections, and Gongsun Yen, the supreme elder, also tacitly agreed with the statement of Ajian, as if what he said was reasonable. Although Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were a little puzzled, after all, they were now in someone else's territory, so it wasn't good for them to express any opinions. They could only silently find a seat and sit down. Naturally, Xiao Chun could see the doubts in the hearts of the two, but he didn't intend to explain. He just put down the cup in his hand, glanced at the two lightly, and then said, "Well, since everyone is here, let's not waste everyone's time. Who wants to talk about the plan to enter the immortal cultivation world first?" Chapter 1267. Boy, everyone here is a reputable figure in the martial arts world. You are just a little assistant who runs errands. What qualifications do you have to discuss the plan of the world of cultivation with us? Mad Demon of West Mountain knocked on the table slowly and asked in a neutral tone. Of course, West Mountain Mad Devil did not really think that Xiao Chun was just a handyman. However, since this guy was pretending to be stupid and refused to tell the truth, he did not intend to let him have his way. He simply played along and taunted him first. Anyway, there was no loss in taking advantage of him verbally. Song Weizong was relatively calm. Although he also had doubts about Xiao Chen's identity, he would not choose to act rashly before he figured out the situation. What's wrong with you? Have you become stupid after practicing evil arts? Didn't I just say that I can manage everything? Going to the world of immortal cultivation is a big thing, and I have to supervise it carefully. Xiao Chen rolled his eyes at West Mountain Mad Devil and shouted impatiently. You are just a little assistant. What the hell is there to supervise? Don't talk nonsense over there. I don't believe you. West Mountain Mad Devil suddenly became furious and shouted, slamming the table. Don't talk nonsense. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Hurry up and tell me everything you know, then get out. Xiao Chun waved his hand decisively and did not even bother to look at him. Xiao Chun had never liked evil cultivators. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to inquire about the situation of the world of immortal cultivation, he would have killed West Mountain Mad Devil long ago. West Mountain Mad Devil was furious at Xiao Chen's arrogance. He jumped up and pointed at Xiao Chen fiercely, gritting his teeth and saying, Say your grandmother's leg. I think you are looking for death. Before his voice died away, West Mountain Mad Devil had already activated his mental cultivation method. A black mist condensed on his body and tightly wrapped his arms. Then, he quickly rushed in front of Xiao Chun, waving his fists and smashing them fiercely. Bang! A loud bang was accompanied by a cry of pain. A figure suddenly flew backward and hit the wall of the conference room before falling to the ground. It was the West Mountain Mad Demon who had just punched. Just now, at the moment when West Mountain Mad Devil punched out, he thought that Xiao Chun would definitely die. However, he suddenly felt his vision blur, and he instantly lost track of Xiao Chun. Then, there was a sound of something tearing through the air behind him. Mad Demon Shishan cursed in his heart, but it was too late for him to react. He could only grit his teeth and take the hit. Although he was prepared to defend himself, he was still sent flying. Everyone in the conference room was dumbfounded, especially Gong Sun Yen and Song Weizong. They were extremely shocked and couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Just now, West Mountain Mad Devil's punch was extremely domineering. The two of them speculated that even they might not be able to escape unscathed. They did not expect that not only was Xiao Chen unscathed, but he had also circled behind West Mountain Mad Devil at a speed that ordinary people could not see with the naked eye and kicked him hard. Song Weizong, who was originally rather indifferent, now had a somewhat grave expression on his face. He could not help but re-evaluate Xiao Chun, secretly estimating this fellow's strength. In all fairness, this guy was definitely not as simple and naive as he looked. This was because when he dodged West Mountain Mad Devil's attack and took the initiative to attack, he did not show his cultivation at all. In other words, Song Weizong couldn't even see Xiao Chen's dodging movements clearly. He could only feel that Xiao Chun was using extremely ordinary punches and kicks. However, just a few ordinary punches and kicks were enough to send Shishan Mad Demon flying into the wall. What exactly was this guy's strength? In the martial arts world, besides the giant bull of Shishan and the old man of the Hong family, there was no one who could make Song Weizong feel fear. Who would have thought that such a young junior would appear out of nowhere today? Which sect was he from? Xiao Chen watched West Mountain Mad Devil fall heavily to the ground, wiped his hands casually, stared at him and scolded. Damn it! You're just an elder of a sect. Do you really think you're someone important? You really shine with a little sunlight and lay eggs with a chicken coop. If it weren't for the fact that you're still useful, I would have killed you long ago. After scolding him for a while, Xiao Chen did not seem to be satisfied. He rolled up his sleeves and walked over. He aimed at his stomach and kicked him hard, sending him flying into the air. Then he punched him hard in the face. Even the bystanders could feel the pain. Ah! West Mountain Mad Devil could not resist at all. He only had time to scream. He felt that his entire face was about to be deformed by Xiao Chen's fist. However, this was not the end. Next, Xiao Chen's fists came surging like a storm. West Mountain Mad Devil did not even have the chance to beg for mercy. He could only use his hands to protect the vital parts of his body, struggling to support himself. Elder Gongsun, you deliberately invited us here. You didn't invite us here, just to beat West Mountain Mad Devil up. Did you? Song Weizong could not stand it anymore. He turned his head and said to Gongsun Yan, although this guy really deserves a beating, I'm not interested in watching him get beaten up. If there's nothing else, I want to leave first. The entire conference room was filled with the sound of Xiao Chen's punches and kicks. Occasionally, West Mountain Mad Devil's screams could be heard. It was painful to listen to, not to mention Song Weizong. Anyone else would not be able to bear it. In fact, Song Weizong felt quite happy watching West Mountain Mad Devil being beaten up by Xiao Chen. It felt like he had vented his anger. However, his main purpose of coming here today was not to see West Mountain Mad Devil make a fool of himself. He wanted to understand the opening of the world of cultivation. Therefore, he did not want to waste any more time. Master Song, please wait a moment. Gongsun Yin quickly comforted Song Weizong. He then turned to Miss Xing with a bitter face and said, that. Sect leader Xing, do you think you can ask Xiao Jian to stop for a while? After all, we still have other things to discuss. It's not a good idea to keep him waiting. What do you think? Gongsun Yin naturally did not dare to provoke Xiao Chen directly. Wouldn't it be over if he got involved? Helplessly, he could only look for Miss Xing to help persuade him. From Gongsun Yan's point of view, Xiao Chen seemed to be interested in Miss Xing otherwise. He would not have helped her seize the position of sect leader. Therefore, Miss Xing should be able to persuade him. Miss Xing also understood what Gongsun Yin meant. She nodded, stood up and walked over. She gently pulled on the corner of Xiao Chen's clothes and said in a low voice, hey, that's enough. Don't you want to ask about the world of cultivation? Don't accidentally kill him. Otherwise, you won't be able to get anything out of him. Chapter 1268. Oh, since Sect Master Xing is pleading on your behalf, I'll give her face and spare your life. Xiao Chen didn't object. He snorted and stopped what he was doing. He turned around and walked towards the main seat. Xiao Chen knew that West Mountain Mad Devil still had some value, so he did not go too hard on him. At most, he would make the old man feel pain for a while, but it would definitely not be fatal. However, although Xiao Chen stopped hitting, West Mountain Mad Devil did not have any intention of standing up. He was still curled up on the ground with his eyes closed. From time to time, he would let out a low moan. It seemed that he was going to continue playing dead, and did not intend to cooperate with Xiao Chen and the others. Slowly returning to his seat, Xiao Chen found that West Mountain Mad Devil was still lying on the ground and wailing. He was not angry but said slowly, Trash from West Mountain, what's wrong? Are you trying to blackmail me? If you think that lying on the ground is more comfortable than sitting in your seat, then I will suffer today and directly cripple your limbs. This way, you can lie on the ground for the rest of your life. What do you think? Humph. You win. Xiao Chen's threat fell into West Mountain Mad Devil's ears. He knew that Xiao Chen would do what he said, so he could only endure the pain on his body and stand up, grimacing in pain. He glared at Xiao Chen fiercely, but his face was already swollen, so the angry glare did not seem to have any deterrence at all. As West Mountain Mad Devil and Song Weizong's subordinates were blocked outside the gate of Qitian Gate, he had to rely on himself and limped back to his seat. Xiao Chen ignored West Mountain Mad Devil's muttering. After he sat down, he said lightly, Okay, I don't want to talk nonsense. This time, I invited the two of you here to ask how your preparations are going. Mad Demon of Shishan was still gasping for air due to the pain from the beating. Song Weizong was already surprised. Why couldn't he understand what Jian was saying? Since we're all going to enter the world of cultivation, then we should all work together. Don't split into 3 groups. You go in your group, and I go in mine. That's a waste of time and energy. Moreover, If there's a problem, there's no way to solve it in time. Xiao Chun waited for a while, and seeing that no one spoke, he added another sentence. Song Weizong couldn't help but say, Friend Jian, I've come to the Awakening Heaven sect to participate in this meeting, because Elder Gongsun sent us a message, saying that the Awakening Heaven sect has already discovered a way to enter the cultivation world. That's why we've come to discuss it with him. Xiao Chun glanced at Gongsun Yen. Gongsun Yen was sweating profusely, but he didn't know how to explain. He could only nod with difficulty. Song Weizong looked at the two of them strangely and continued, So why don't you talk about how to enter the world of cultivation first? And then everyone can analyze it in detail. What do you think? Song Weizong was a little puzzled. It was clearly the Awakening Heaven sect who called him here. And from the looks of it, it seemed that the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect were going to cooperate with them. But now, they didn't mention a word about the way to enter the world of cultivation. What was the point of cooperating? Oh, that method won't work now, because the only transmission array has been destroyed by that idiot Situchitian. It can't send anyone else to the world of cultivation. Xiao Chun spread his hands and said unhurriedly, What? That Awakening Heaven palm. Did the former sect leader go to the world of cultivation? Song Weizong was shocked and immediately asked. He went in, but whether he's dead or alive is still unknown. Xiao Chun knocked on the table and said his final purpose. Because of this, I've specially asked the two of you to come here today. I want to ask you, is there any other way to enter the world of cultivation? If there is, you might as well share it with everyone. Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil finally understood the ins and outs of the whole matter. Although Song Weizong was stunned when he learned that Situchitian had entered the world of cultivation in advance, he quickly calmed down and was not too surprised. He lowered his head to think about something and did not immediately choose to agree or refuse. West Mountain Mad Devil was silent. He was very dissatisfied with Xiao Chun's attitude. It was obvious that the Awakening Heaven sect could not get any benefits themselves, so they took the initiative to cooperate with the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect, wanting to get a share of their plan. In the end, he even put on the posture of a master. This was simply treating others as fools. However, due to Xiao Chun's high strength, West Mountain Mad Devil did not dare to complain. He could only choose to remain silent. He planned to see how Song Weizong would deal with it before making a decision. As for Gongsun Yen, who was standing on the side with his head down, he had long been defeated by Xiao Chun. Naturally, he had no opinion at all. Moreover, the Awakening Heaven sect's plan had completely failed. Of course, he was anxious to use other ways to enter the world of cultivation, so he could only listen to Xiao Chun's instructions at the moment. Seeing that both of them were in deep thought, Xiao Chun was not in a hurry to urge them. Instead, he said lightly, You don't have to rush to give me an answer for the time being. You can think about it for a while. Anyway, in addition to you, the people of the Awakening Heaven sect are also looking for other ways to enter the world of cultivation. When the time comes, they may enter before you. Song Weizong's expression changed for a while. As if he had suddenly made up his mind, he said, Jian, my little friend, please allow me to go out for a while and report to the sect first. After all, this matter is of great importance. I must discuss it with the people in charge of the other sects before I can give you a confirmation. After that, Song Weizong took out his mobile phone and apologized to Xiao Chun. Then he walked out of the door. It seemed that he was going to make a phone call. Xiao Chun waved his hand, leaned on the chair, and put himself in a comfortable position. Then, he closed his eyes and rested, waiting for Song Weizong's return. When West Mountain Mad Devil saw this scene, he frowned slightly and thought to himself, Song Weizong, this fool, won't be swayed by this, will he? In fact, as long as both the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect keep their mouths shut, that kid won't be able to get anything out of them. Since this guy named Jian claimed that they were confident of finding a way to enter the world of cultivation, then let him go and find it. Who knew when he would find it? Why should he share his own achievements with him? After waiting for a while, Song Weizong finished the phone call and returned to the conference room. As soon as he entered the door, he nodded slightly to Xiao Chun and said, Jian, my little friend, our immortal cultivation sect has discussed it internally. We are willing to cooperate with the Awakening Heaven sect. Since everyone's purpose is the same, if we can enter the world of cultivation together, we can take care of each other. Chapter 1269. What? Hearing this, Mad Devil of Shishan was really shocked. He never thought that the people of the immortal cultivation sect, who had always thought highly of themselves and acted alone, would actually be willing to cooperate with a young boy. What was going on? In fact, the immortal cultivation sect also had their own ideas. This time, they had recruited relatively few women with spiritual energy. If they forcefully opened the sacrifice, it was very likely that they would not be able to open the passage. Instead, these women would be lost, and in the end, they would suffer a double loss. The ghost cultivation sect seemed to have only captured a portion of people, and it was probably not enough. Since everyone was short of manpower, it was better to gather together. In this way, wouldn't they be able to enter the world of immortal cultivation? The most important thing was that if everyone went in together, they would be able to see how many people from the ghost cultivation sect had entered. This way, they would not have to worry all day about how many people from the ghost cultivation sect had secretly entered and would be caught off guard. If everyone gathered together to open the passage to the world of immortal cultivation, it meant that the number of people from both sides would basically be equal. In this way, they would also be able to deal with the situation appropriately. After all, whether it was letting the people from the ghost cultivation sect enter the world of immortal cultivation alone, or letting them learn something and return with glory, it was not a good thing. It was best to let them be under his watch. Sure enough, Xiao Chun nodded with satisfaction. Then, he turned to look at West Mountain Mad Devil and said, What about the ghost cultivation sect? The immortal cultivation sect has already agreed. What do you say? West Mountain Mad Devil did not speak for a long time. Song Weizong's attitude was unexpected. Originally, he thought that even if this guy did not refuse immediately, he would at least delay it for a while and test the other party's attitude. He did not expect that Song Weizong would agree so directly after going out to make a phone call. This made West Mountain Mad Devil suddenly panic, and for a moment, he did not know how to deal with it. Seeing that West Mountain Mad Devil had been hesitating for a long time and did not give an answer, Xiao Chun could not help but sneer and mercilessly ridicule. It seems that the immortal cultivation sect is more reliable. They know when to advance and when to retreat, unlike those idiots from the ghost cultivation sect. They have to think back and forth for such a simple problem for a long time. I think we should not call them the ghost cultivation sect. Since there is something wrong with their brains, we should just call them the brain cultivation sect. You, Shishan Mad Devil was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He was an elder in the ghost cultivation sect, and his status had always been high and mighty. Other than the sect leader, Shishan Junyo, who could give him orders, everyone else was very respectful and fearful of him. When had he ever suffered such vexation? What you and me? Should he cooperate or not? Good or bad? It was a simple decision. Hurry up and say it. This young master has no time to waste with you. Xiao Chun looked at West Mountain Mad Devil, who was angry but did not dare to speak. He could not help but slap the table heavily. His sharp eyes looked straight at West Mountain Mad Devil. Obviously, he had lost his patience. West Mountain Mad Devil was startled by Xiao Chun's heavy slap on the table. He felt a cold killing intent coming straight at him. He was afraid that Song Weizong would kill him in anger, so he quickly waved his hand. His eyes wandered back and forth between Song Weizong, Xing Gongzi and Gong Sun Yan. After pondering for a while, a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes, and he finally spoke. I can't give you an answer right now, because I have to ask our sect leader, Shishan Junyo. If he agrees to participate in your operation, I naturally won't have any objections, West Mountain Mad Devil said in a hoarse voice. What the F***CK? Is there something wrong with your ghost cultivation sect? You said you wanted to come over to discuss something, But you sent a guy who can't make a decision. Are you deliberately looking for trouble? Xiao Chen suddenly rolled his eyes and said impatiently, Then why are you still sitting here? Hurry up and call him to ask. Don't tell me you want me to invite you? That's not necessary. But before I ask, I have another request. Even if our ghost cultivation sect agrees to cooperate with you, it's only a one-sided alliance. West Mountain Mad Devil glanced at Gongsun Yen and added, As for Awakened Sect, because they didn't inform us before and chose to act on their own, and the plan to send people to the immortal cultivation world also failed, we naturally can't let them join us this time as punishment. When Song Weizong heard West Mountain Mad Devil's opinion, he also nodded slightly. Although the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect were not on good terms, they had a consensus on this point. With the help of an expert like Xiao Chun, the immortal cultivation sect was certainly happy to see it happen. However, Awakened Sect was not very useful now. At best, it was of little value, so there was no need to take them to the immortal cultivation world and waste the existing resources. Oh, Xiao Chen yawned as if he suddenly thought of something. He said casually, I forgot to tell you just now. In addition to my part-time job in Awakened Sect, the current sect leader of Awakened Sect, Xing Gongzi, happens to be my wife. Puffed. Cough cough. West Mountain Mad Devil had just picked up the water on the table and took a sip. When he heard this, he almost choked. He lay on the table and coughed for a long time. Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with him. He spread his hands and continued, If you don't allow the Awakening Gate to participate in this operation, then my wife might be very unhappy. If she's unhappy, then I'll be unhappy. Once I'm in a bad mood, this plan of entering the world of cultivation might not go smoothly. It might even be put on hold. You guys have to think carefully. The reason why Xiao Chen used this reason to threaten the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect was to point out his relationship with Xing Gongzi. On the other hand, he wanted Xing Gongzi, the sect leader, to have a strong enough background. Even if he was not by her side in the future, she would be able to better establish herself in the inner martial world. Cough cough. I didn't expect it to be like this. After West Mountain Mad Devil pretended to cough for a while, as if he had just heard what Xiao Chen said, he put on a surprised expression and sighed. Since sect leader Xing and little friend Xiao Chun have such a relationship, of course, Awakened Sect can join. West Mountain Mad Devil did not expect that the two of them would have such a close relationship. He was not a fool. He knew very well that since the young man in front of him said it, he would definitely be able to do it. Now that he was under the control of others, he really had no choice but to agree. There seemed to be no better choice. Our immortal cultivation sect has no objections. Song Weizong was very disdainful of West Mountain Mad Devil's hypocritical acting, but he still echoed his opinion. Song Weizong was also a little afraid of Xiao Chen. After all, Xiao Chen's strength was clear for all to see. Even if Song Weizong was not willing, he would not openly reject Xiao Chen on the spot. That was clearly an irrational action. He might end up like the West Mountain Mad Demon and get beaten up. Chapter 1270. Lady Xing, who was sitting next to Xiao Chen, blushed and looked very shy. She clenched her fists tightly and did not dare to move. She was a little nervous and embarrassed, but also a little excited. Was Xiao Chen's action a confession to her? Or did it mean that he had already acknowledged her? Little Xing remembered that Xiao Chen had said something similar back in the Venerable Realm. At that time, she thought he was just spouting nonsense. Now that he mentioned it again, could it be that he really wanted to take it a step further and improve their relationship? Gongsun Yen, who was standing at the side, was expressionless. He did not express any opinion about Xiao Chen's declaration of sovereignty. It was as if he had tacitly agreed to it. Gongsun Yen had been immersed in the Awakening Heaven sect for a long time and had played many tricks. Therefore, he knew very well that in the face of absolute strength, any trick would be ineffective. Therefore, at this time, he did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. In addition, Gongsun Yan's character was to bully the weak and fear the strong. Although he was very ambitious, he was very timid. Otherwise, he would not have deliberately made so many moves after Situ Haotian had left for so long. He had to make sure that Situ Haotian would not respond. Now that Xiao Chen's strength was so high that even the Immortal Cultivation faction and the Ghost Cultivation faction, which he respected and feared, did not dare to act rashly in front of him. How could Gong Sunyin dare to have other thoughts? He could only choose to surrender. Moreover, now that Xiao Chen had taken the initiative to let Awakening Heaven sect join, because of his relationship with Xing Gongzi, Gong Sunyin would not oppose it. Gong Sunyin felt that if he could take advantage of this opportunity, he might be able to fulfill the wish that he had failed to achieve with his biohuman plan. He could use this opportunity to enter the world of immortal cultivation and obtain a higher level of strength. No objections, right? If not, then hurry up and ask for instructions. Do you believe that I will give you a kick as a plane ticket? Xiao Chen waited for a while. Seeing that everyone was silent, he glared at Mad Devil of Shishan and shouted fiercely. Mad Demon Shishan looked angry. His lips squirmed as if he wanted to curse a few times. But in the end, he didn't say anything. He stood up and walked out of the conference room dejectedly. Song Weizong looked at the back of West Mountain Mad Devil, and then looked at Xiao Chen's expression. He was wondering if he should leave first when Xiao Chen suddenly said with a smile, "Song family head. Now that the annoying old man from West Mountain is not here, I have something to ask you." Song Weizong was slightly taken aback, but he quickly waved his hand and said, "Hee, I don't dare to ask for advice. Little friend Ajian, feel free to speak your mind. As long as this old man knows the answer, I will definitely tell you everything." After seeing how Xiao Chen dealt with the mad demon of Shishan, Song Weizong had developed a little respect for him from the bottom of his heart, so his attitude had unconsciously become a lot more polite. "Oh, actually it's nothing big. I just want to understand something from you." Xiao Chen didn't bother to beat around the bush and asked directly, "I heard that your Immortal Cultivation sect can open the door to the Immortal Cultivation world through the method of sacrifice, right? How does this process work? Since it's a sacrifice, what kind of sacrifices do you need to prepare?" As for the specific method of sacrifice, Xiao Chen was still confused. Thinking that Hong Zhu and CFA needed to participate in the sacrifice, and that Goddess Shun might also be involved, he thought that it would be better to take the time to find out more about it while the Song family head was here. If there were any problems, he would be able to find a solution in time. This, Song Weizong's expression changed slightly. He stroked his beard and did not speak for a while. Although there was nothing strange on the surface, Song Weizong's heart was already in turmoil at this time. He was extremely surprised. How did this kid know about the sacrifice? Logically speaking, this matter should be the core secret of the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect. Even some of the elders in the family may not know about it. Where did he hear about it? And from this guy's tone, it seems that this matter is already set in stone, and there is no trace of testing. Who gave him this certainty? Looking at Song Weizong's changing expression and his hesitant look, Xiao Chen curled his lips and said with a faint smile, "Looking at Song family head's expression, could it be that the information I received was wrong? Or does Song family head feel that there is no need to tell me, a partner, the details of opening the door to the Immortal Cultivation world? No, little friend Ajian. Please don't misunderstand. This old man doesn't mean that at all." Song Weizong shook his head like a rattle drum. He was afraid that if he accidentally angered this demon, he would be beaten up like the mad demon of Shishan. However, Xiao Chen refused to give up. He continued to ask, "Then Song family head, are you afraid that after I know the specific details, I will no longer cooperate with your Immortal Cultivation sect and turn around to make a fortune on my own?" Sweat dripped down Song Weizong's forehead. He could only open his mouth with difficulty and say, "That, our Immortal Cultivation sect does have the method of sacrifice, but as for the specific operation, I am also not very clear. This is because this is the common secret of the Immortal Cultivation sect. The relevant secret manual is still in the family's secret place. Only when the sacrifice begins can it be officially announced." Xiao Chen's face immediately darkened. Even a fool could see that Song Weizong was lying. As the dignified Song family head, how could he not even know the method of the sacrifice? Isn't this nonsense? Does he really think that he is a naive little rabbit who is ignorant of the world? According to what you said, even if I wanted to know the procedure of the sacrifice in advance, and then make sufficient preparations in advance, it is impossible? Xiao Chen's tone had become somewhat dangerous. Actually, that may not be the case. Song Weizong swallowed his saliva and asked tentatively, how about I first discuss it with the other families? After all, the secret method of the sacrifice is a common item of our entire sect. This old man can only represent the Song family and cannot make decisions for others. If they do not object, this old man will tell you the entire method of the sacrifice. What do you think, little friend Jian? Song Weizong could naturally see that Xiao Chen was already a bit unhappy. However, he also did not want to hand over his trump card so quickly. In desperation, he could only choose to use a delaying tactic to buy some time before making a decision. Oh, could it be that other than the Song family and the Hong family, there are other families participating? Xiao Chen was a bit surprised. Previously, when Gong Sun Yan had mentioned it to him, Xiao Chen had thought that those unknown small families were only some martial cultivators and demonic cultivators, or even ordinary people who were only there to do manual labor. Chapter 1271. But according to Song Weizong, those families were also cultivator families. He had thought that the number of cultivators in the inner martial arts world was very small, but now it seemed that the scale was quite large. Yes, because the Song family and the Hong family have a relatively deep foundation and a relatively large number of people. The other small families elected us as leaders to deal with some routine affairs. However, opening the world of immortal cultivation is of great importance, and the sacrificial method really needs everyone's consent before it can be taken out. Our two families dare not make decisions in private. Please forgive us, little friend Jian. Song Weizong did not even dare to breathe, as he explained with a bitter face. Okay then, let's do as you say. Xiao Chen did not force him this time. Instead, he nodded and said faintly, if you have made a decision, come and tell me immediately so that I can prepare in advance. After all, Xiao Chen did not have any deep hatred with the immortal cultivation sections. They were all cultivators, so there was no need to push them too far and make enemies for themselves. Anyway, it was not the time for the sacrificial ceremony yet. A few more days was fine. Thank you, little friend Jian. I'm going to call the other families right now. As soon as there is news, come and inform me immediately. Song Weizong's worried heart finally fell to the ground at this moment. He hurriedly cupped his hands in gratitude, then wiped the cold sweat on his forehead, took out his mobile phone, and left the conference room in a hurry. Xiao Chen shook his head when he saw Song Weizong's flustered look. He found it a little funny. The effect of his beating just now was pretty good. These people looked at him, as if they were looking at a scourge or ferocious beast. Fortunately, the sacrificial ceremony had not started yet, so Xiao Chen was not so eager to know the process. Now that everything was under his control, there was no need to make enemies for no reason. Therefore, Xiao Chen let Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil go and interrogate them separately, which could be regarded as a buffer period for them. While Song Weizong left in a hurry, West Mountain Mad Devil finally found a secluded place in a corner of Open Heaven Gate and stood still. West Mountain Mad Devil looked around warily, making sure that no one was eavesdropping around, then picked up his mobile phone and immediately dialed a phone number on the screen, waiting anxiously for the other party to answer. Mad Demon, what did Awakening Heaven Gate say? Mad Demon Shishan waited for a long time before the phone was connected. Then a man's cold voice came. It sounded as stiff and emotionless as a dead man's. Reporting to Sect Master, Sitachitian is no longer the Sect Master of Awakening Heaven Sect. He has passed the position of Sect Master to a little girl named Xinggongzi. West Mountain Mad Demon did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly reported. Xinggongzi? Xinggongzi? Shishan giant yak seemed to be slightly surprised, but its voice did not waver. It was still very rigid. It repeated the name several times, as if trying to remember if it had heard of this person before. Most importantly, when I came here this time, I found out that there was a guy named Jian by the girl's side. He's very powerful. I wanted to test him just now. Mad Devil Shishan told him everything about how he was beaten up. Again, where did this person come from? Shishan Giant Yak was really a little surprised this time. After all, the strength of West Mountain Mad Demon was already outstanding in the martial arts world. Who else could beat him to the point that he could not fight back except for those old ghosts of the Immortal Cultivation sect? Shishan Giant Yak did not care too much about the change of the sect master of Awakening Heaven Gate. If someone could defeat West Mountain Mad Demon, he would only frown a little. However, when the two things were combined together, Shishan Giant Yak had to pay attention to it. Could it be that in addition to the Ghost Cultivation sect and the Immortal Cultivation sect, there was a higher level sect in the martial arts world? Could it be that Awakening Heaven Gate had taken refuge in that sect? So this time they were specially called to demonstrate. Xingongzi, Ajian. Shishan Giant Yak repeated these two names several times. He kept searching the memory in his mind, but found that he had no impression of these two people at all. Since he could not remember for a while, Shishan Giant Yak simply put this matter aside and asked, "Speaking of which, didn't Awakening Heaven Gate claim to have found another way to enter the world of immortal cultivation? So they called you over? Did you find out what method it was? Is Gongsun Yin that old thing fooling us?" "Sectmaster, you are right. Gongsun Yin is indeed fooling us." Shishan Mad Demon suddenly slapped his thigh and shouted angrily. "What?" Shishan Giant Yak's tone suddenly rose. He was obviously a little angry. He said fiercely, "When I received the news, I felt that things were a little strange. That old guy never gets up early without benefits. Why did he come to us to share it? What is going on? Tell me in detail." Qi Tian Men had indeed discovered a teleportation formation leading to the world of cultivators, but it had been destroyed by Situ Qitian due to a freak accident. Although he himself was transmitted to the world of immortal cultivation with the help of that array, it is unknown whether he is alive or dead. Shishan Mad Demon shook his head helplessly and honestly repeated what Xiao Chen had just said. How could it be so coincidental? Situ Qitian is really a piece of trash. Shishan Mad Demon couldn't help but curse angrily. After thinking about it, he felt that something was wrong and asked, "That's not right. Since this method has failed, why did he deliberately call you over? Just to let you know about this tragic thing? Or to tell them that the sect master has been changed?" "No, Awakening Heaven Gate wants to cooperate with our Ghost Cultivation sect and the Immortal Cultivation sect to enter the world of immortal cultivation using our method," Shishan Mad Demon replied. F***CK. Shishan Mad Demon originally wanted to curse, but considering his identity and status, he forcibly held back and said in a gloomy tone, "Awakening Heaven Gate really has a good plan. Did you agree to them?" "Not yet," Shishan Mad Demon quickly denied. "But Song Weizong went out and made a phone call. After he came back he agreed to cooperate, so I slipped out and called you." Hearing this, Shishan Mad Demon's mood became very depressed. Originally, the number of women with spiritual qi that the Ghost Cultivation sect had collected was not enough. If they wanted to forcibly start the sacrifice, it would inevitably be a little difficult. Shishan Mad Demon still hoped to use the method provided by Awakening Heaven Gate to directly enter the world of immortal cultivation without the sacrifice. He did not expect such an unforeseen event to happen. Instead, Awakening Heaven Gate wanted to share a piece of the cake with them. Chapter 1272. Sect Leader, why don't we ignore them? Why don't we send people to look for other women with spiritual qi? Shishan Mad Demon waited for a long time and didn't see his leader speak, so he suggested, "Didn't we sense two of them near the Jia family of the inner martial arts world? I'll send someone to catch them. Maybe we can get enough people in this way." In fact, the women with spiritual qi that the ghost cultivation sect sensed near the Jia family were Ling, and Ling Qianxue. However, they didn't dare to catch them at that time. The ghost cultivation sect was originally a sect that couldn't be seen in the light. They were the type of people who were hated by everyone, although they were not afraid to fight against the Jia family alone. If the Jia family became angry and joined forces with other sects and families to fight against the ghost cultivation sect, then this matter would be troublesome. Absolutely not. Shishan Giant Bull immediately rejected this idea and said in a deep voice, "Now, Qi Tian sect, the leader of the demon sect in the internal martial arts world, is eyeing us covetously, waiting for the fishermen to profit from the fight. It is really unwise to offend the Jia family, one of the three big families. You must not act rashly." Okay, I didn't think it through. Shishan Mad Demon responded dejectedly. Shishan Mad Demon pondered for a moment, and suddenly a sinister idea flashed in his mind. He immediately ordered coldly, "How about this? Since Jian wants us to cooperate, and the Immortal Cultivation sect has agreed, why don't we beat them at their own game? Next you go and promise Jian that we can cooperate with them, and then..." Shishan Mad Demon laughed strangely as he revealed the sinister plan that he had just come up with. As expected of the leader of Shishan Mad Demon. After listening to the plan, Shishan Mad Demon repeatedly praised, "If this plan succeeds smoothly, then our ghost cultivation sect will slaughter the immortal cultivation sect sooner or later. At that time, we can take all the other sects and families under our command, and we no longer have to hide in the inner martial arts world." At this point, the Mad Demon of the Shishan Mountain could not help but chuckle. He looked very proud of himself. It was as if he could already see the people of the Immortal Cultivation sect being trampled under his feet, and the scene of the Ghost Cultivation sect dominating the martial arts world. "Don't think about this for now. Hurry up and get things done. I'll ask someone to send those girls over later." Shishan Giant Ox had regained his composure, and his voice became as stiff and rigid as before. "All right, I'll wait for your news, sect leader." West Mountain Mad Demon quickly stopped laughing, hung up the phone, and ran back to the conference room. After returning to the conference room, Mad Demon of Shishan found that Song Weizong was no longer there. However, the few people from Awakening Heaven sect were still there. Without thinking too much, he immediately found Xiao Chun with a smile, and expressed that the Ghost Cultivation sect was willing to cooperate with Awakening Heaven sect. During the cooperation period, they could provide all kinds of cultivation resources that little friend Xiao Chun and the others from Awakening Heaven sect needed to express their sincerity. After listening, Xiao Chun nodded slightly, indicating that he already knew, and sent Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain away. Originally, Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain thought that Xiao Chun would be flattered by his enthusiasm, but it turned out that he was splashed with a basin of cold water. Although he was dissatisfied, he did not dare to show it. He was afraid that Xiao Chun would beat him up again if he was unhappy. So he had to leave the conference room obediently. Looking at the back of Mad Demon of Shishan Mountain, Xiao Chun's expression was a little solemn. He was not too interested in the so-called cultivation resources. On the contrary, the Ghost Cultivation sect was hesitant before, but they agreed so readily. Xiao Chun keenly guessed that there should be some conspiracy behind this. If it was just the Ghost Cultivation sect's conspiracy, Xiao Chun would not be too concerned. He estimated that the other party only had the leader of Giant Ox, who was a little more powerful. However, coupled with the slightly vague attitude of the Immortal Cultivation sect just now, it made Xiao Chun a little uneasy. If the Ghost Cultivation sect and the Immortal Cultivation sect both objected to Awakened sect's continued participation in the sacrificial ceremony and threatened not to hand over the sacrificial ceremony method, then it would be difficult for him to fight against the two sects at the same time. Xiao Chun knocked on the table rhythmically as he pondered with a frown. If he wanted to find a few helpers, it would be a little difficult. Apart from the Jia family and Awakening Heaven sect, which Xiao Chun could deploy, the other sects and families in the martial arts world did not have any relations with him. Moreover, even if they were willing to help him, he would not need them at all. This was because the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect were all cultivators. Even if he mobilized all the experts of the Jia family and Awakened Sect, they might not have the strength to compete with the other party. On the contrary, they might be completely annihilated. Xiao Chun was not willing to risk the lives of other innocent people. He had to think of another way. After instructing Gong Sun Yen to properly arrange the food and lodging for Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil, Xiao Chun bade farewell to Miss Xing, and then stood up to leave the conference room. As he walked, he pondered over a more suitable method. Back in his room, Xiao Chun sat at the table with a sullen face. He had been thinking for a long time, but could not think of a suitable idea. Did he really have to hope that the Immortal Cultivation Sect would obediently hand over the sacrificial ceremony method? Right now, Cheng Minjing, Tian Wangshou, and the rest were temporarily staying in Awakening Heaven Sect. If he were to place his hopes on an unpredictable sect, it was very likely that not only would he suffer a calamity, but his woman would also be implicated. Leaning against the back of the chair, Xiao Chen's dignified gaze inadvertently fell on the table. Other than his luggage, there were also the fragments of the flying sword that he had put away earlier. Staring at the fragments, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of the time when he was dealing with Sita Qitian. At that time, the flying sword techniques that he had used had scared Sita Qitian, whose strength was higher than his. If this flying sword was intact, he might be able to rely on those techniques to kill some evil cultivators who were scheming against him. This way, he could also intimidate the people from the Immortal Cultivation Sect, so that they would not dare to do anything. Elder Heaven Ancestor, look at this flying sword. It has already been broken into pieces. Can you let the fire of the underworld reforge it, and restore it to its original appearance? Xiao Chun arranged the fragments of the flying sword, and put them back together. Looking at the cracks on the body of the sword, he asked helplessly but still had a glimmer of hope. I think it will be very difficult. After being struck by the lightning tribulation, this flying sword has already lost its spirituality. Even if it is reforged, it will not be able to fly like before. Elder Heaven Ancestor shook his head, and mercilessly pierced through Xiao Chen's hope. Chapter 1273. Sigh, if I could recover, I would at least have a higher chance of success. Now, Xiao Chen sighed, and frowned even more. Compared to this matter, I think there's another problem that you need to consider now. Before Xiao Chen could finish speaking, the Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly said in a serious tone. What's wrong? What happened? Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. There was something wrong with the tone of the Elder Heaven Ancestor. You've been busy these few days, so I haven't found a chance to tell you. I guess you haven't realized it either. Ever since you ordered in Xiaoma to merge with the flames of the underworld, and successfully tricked Bai Zhe, and Xiaoma's primordial spirit has been dissipating. I guess he'll disappear completely after a while. The Elder Heaven Ancestor explained with difficulty. What? How could this be? Xiao Chun was shocked. He had been busy dealing with the matters of the immortal cultivation world, and had been busy with external affairs. He did not pay much attention to the condition of the two primordial spirits in his body. When he heard the Elder Heaven Ancestor's words, he was shocked. Xiao Chun immediately checked in Xiaoma's primordial spirit, and found that it was indeed as the Elder Heaven Ancestor had said. The primordial spirit was indeed fading. Even if he wanted to transfer his primordial spirit to treat him, it would be useless. Don't waste your primordial spirit. It's useless. It's precisely because the attribute of the flames of the underworld's primordial spirit restrains the attribute of Xiaoma's primordial spirit that the injury is irreversible. The Elder Heaven Ancestor stopped Xiao Chen's futile efforts and explained slowly. If you hadn't asked them to merge to deal with the spiritual beast, and Xiaoma's primordial spirit wouldn't have been burned. Now, even using primordial spirit won't be able to help him recover. I'm sorry, Xiaoma. I didn't expect that you wouldn't even be able to protect your primordial spirit in order to save me. You're about to turn into ashes. Xiao Chen stared at Xiaoma's dim primordial spirit and muttered. If I had known this would happen, I would have thought of another way to deal with Baizé. Xiaochen was feeling very guilty at this moment. He did not realize that the problem would be so serious. Although he had captured Baizé as a mount, he had paid the price of Xiaoma's primordial spirit. The price was too high. It's all right. As long as master is fine, it's fine. And little demon said weakly. Anyway, I've already lived for so many years. I'm content. With every sentence Xiaoma spoke, his primordial spirit dimmed a little. It was obvious that he could not hold on for much longer. All right, don't say anything. Xiaochen hurriedly stopped Xiaoma from answering, which consumed his primordial spirit. He then asked, Elder Heaven Ancestor, you're so knowledgeable and knowledgeable. Is there no way for Xiaoma to recover? Although Xiaoma's original purpose of occupying Xiaochen's body was to allow him to be reborn, Xiaochen no longer blamed him. Instead, he hoped that he could be saved. After all, Xiaoma had been with him for so long. He was diligent and hardworking. He had already made up for his mistakes. Moreover, the reason why he was injured this time was to save Xiaochen's life. There is a way, but it's very troublesome. Elder Heaven Ancestor pondered for a while, then sighed and said, You must first find a suitable container to put Xiaoma's primordial spirit in. Then, take him to a place with sufficient demonic qi, so that he can absorb enough demonic qi to recover. Where am I supposed to find a container in such a short period of time? Even if I find one, I don't have a suitable place for Xiaoma to absorb demonic qi. Xiaochen smiled bitterly. He suddenly thought of something and quickly asked, Elder Heaven Ancestor, I remember you once said that my primordial qi can be transformed into anything in the world, right? Can't I use my primordial qi to inject it into him? Not yet. Elder Heaven Ancestor rejected Xiaochen's suggestion and explained, because Xiaoma's primordial spirit relies on demonic qi to survive. Although primordial qi can also be transformed for his use, his primordial spirit is so weak. There's no way for him to absorb your mutated primordial qi. It will only make him dissipate faster. Do I have to break into the lair of the ghost cultivation sect? There is enough demonic qi there. But I'm afraid that Xiaoma will die before I get there. Xiaochen said with a bitter face. In fact, Xiaochen had another worry. If he went to the lair of the ghost cultivation sect, and the two sides got into a fight, it would be hard to say if he could escape unscathed, let alone help Xiaoma recover his demonic qi. Right. I have another way. Elder Heaven Ancestor was silent for a while, then suddenly shouted, Oh my God, Elder Heaven Ancestor, you scared me. Xiaochen suddenly shivered and said angrily, If you have a way, say it quickly. What's with all the fuss? Xiaochen was really speechless at Elder Heaven Ancestor. At this time, this old urchin still had the time to keep him in suspense. Didn't I just think of it? Elder Heaven Ancestor smiled a little awkwardly and quickly described. First, use your primordial qi to make a barrier, just like what you did in the Venerable Realm. Make it 100 times smaller, then release Xiaoma's primordial spirit from your body, and put it in the barrier to protect it. Put it in the barrier? What's the use of that? Xiaochen asked doubtfully. Can my barrier be a container for his primordial spirit? Of course not. Do you think your barrier is so omnipotent? Elder Heaven Ancestor first refuted Xiaochen mercilessly, then explained with a little excitement. After you release Xiaoma's primordial spirit, fuse it into the flying sword. When your flying sword has a primordial spirit, it can be reforged by the fire of the underworld. Are you serious? Can this work? Xiaochen listened to Elder Heaven Ancestor's joking idea and asked suspiciously. Of course it can. If you don't believe me, who else can you believe? The more Elder Heaven Ancestor said, the happier he became. He continued with a smile. When you're done, not only can you protect Xiaoma, but you can also use the flying sword. Xiaochen frowned and thought for a long time. He found that apart from this method, he really couldn't think of any other solution. So he had no choice but to accept Elder Heaven Ancestor's suggestion. However, before building the barrier, Xiaochen said worriedly, I say, Elder Heaven Ancestor. In this way, although Xiaoma's primordial spirit is saved, He still can't absorb the evil qi. Should I find a time to go to the ghost cultivation sect's territory? I find that you're really stupid and naive, Elder Heaven Ancestor lectured. Won't the ghost cultivation sect send people over in a few days? At that time, those people will definitely be escorted by a lot of evil cultivators. As long as you kill a few of them with the flying sword, won't Xiaoma's primordial spirit be able to absorb the evil qi? Chapter 1274. Originally, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao had no intention of coming to Awakening Heaven sect. When Hongzhu and the others brought the injured Song Qingshu and third young master Hong back to the Hong family, they had told them that they had met Xiao Chun in the Venerable Realm. He looked fine and was not kidnapped by anyone, nor did he seem to be injured. What the F***ck? How the F***ck is this possible? Xiao Chun could naturally hear that the Elder Heaven Ancestor was scolding him, but he didn't care too much because this was really a good idea. Although Song Qingshu didn't have a particularly good impression of the demonic cultivator, in any case, the two sides would be considered to have a cooperative relationship in the future. Since he was in the territory of Awakening Heaven sect, he couldn't treat them lightly. Little Miss Xing and Song Qingshu didn't have much friendship before, and now that the ghost cultivation sect hadn't arrived yet, she didn't plan to meet second young master Song so soon. Unexpectedly, the other party took the initiative to greet her. Could it be that there was a problem with their sacrifice? Master, thank you so much. I didn't expect you. And Xiaoma was very grateful to Xiao Chun for his rescue. But before he could express his gratitude, he felt that he had been covered by a transparent cover. After about an hour or so, the bluish-purple flames emitted by the fire of the underworld gradually weakened. At the same time, a brand new flying sword appeared in front of Xiao Chun. This time, with the integration of Xiaoma's spirit, the new flying sword seemed to be sharper than before, and there was a faint black light. Not long ago, little Miss Xing had received the news that Song Qingshu had come to Awakening Heaven sect. It seemed that he had come to send something to Song Weizong, and she heard that he had brought a few beauties with him. However, when he saw that Xiao Chun was also present and standing behind Xing Gongzi, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, and he muttered in his heart, "Why is this kid here?" And it seems that his relationship with sect leader Xing is quite close. Is he a disciple of Awakening Heaven sect? No wonder he was so arrogant in the Venerable Realm. And what is this fellow doing here? Hearing that Song Qingshu had come over, little Lady Xing couldn't help but mutter in surprise. Most importantly, Xiao Chun could feel that Xiaoma's primordial spirit in the flying sword was safe and sound. It was no longer fading and about to disappear like before, but had stabilized. The next step was to wait for the ghost cultivation sect to send someone over, so that Xiaoma could have a full meal. She glanced at Xiao Chun, who was beside her, and saw that he was also at a loss. It seemed that he didn't know what Song Qingshu was here for either. Xiao Chun summoned his flying sword and couldn't wait to test it in the open heaven gate. He found that the flying sword's flying speed seemed to be faster than before. It was even faster than Bai Zai's running speed. However, Jin Beibei, who was the most active in looking for Xiao Chun, didn't agree with this plan. She always had a strong hunch that if she went to the Jia family, she would find nothing. Instead, she would meet Xiao Chun and Cheng Minjing in the open heaven gate. Now that the Elder Heaven Ancestor had guaranteed that everything would be fine, there must be no mistake. Xiao Chun's mood turned gloomy. He said eagerly, "Then let's not waste time. I'll make a primordial qi barrier for Xiaoma now. Nethery, you're in charge of forging the sword. Hurry up." After some spying, Hongzhu finally learned that Xiao Chun had joined the Jia family's team. As a venerable mentor, he led the Jia family to cultivate in the secret realm. Fortunately, after seeing Xiao Chun, Hongzhu already had a clear direction to look for. He was no longer as clueless as before. Seeing Miss Xing's pleading eyes, Xiao Chun nodded slightly. He didn't object. Miss Xing received the signal. She waved her hand and said, "Got it. Let him in." After meeting up with Song Weizong, and helping the girls settle down, Song Qingshu stood at the door of the room for a long time. He decided to pay a visit to the new sect leader Xing Gongzi. Along with Hong Zhu, in addition to Shen Jingxian and Xie Fei, there were also 3 girls, Jin Beibei, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao. They were also in the team. Xiao Chun was afraid that Xiaoma would speak again and consume more of his vital spirit. He immediately made a barrier with his primordial qi and sealed his vital spirit in the body of the flying sword. Then, he urged the fire of the underworld to recast the flying sword as soon as possible. While treating Song Qingshu and third young master Hong Zhu sent Hong Ying's team to gather information about the team entering the Venerable Realm. Before they set off, Hong Zhu told Song Huawu and the other 2 girls that Xiao Chun had settled in the Jia family. Therefore, Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao wanted to set off to the Jia family to find Xiao Chen's whereabouts, while Hong Zhu and the others were going to open Heavenly Gate. Not long after the disciple left, Song Qingshu strode into the room with her head held high. When the girls heard this, they were excited and comforted. They kept asking Hong Zhu and Shen Jingxian about other things about Xiao Chen. Only then did Hong Zhu and the others remember that they knew nothing except that Xiao Chun had entered the Venerable Realm with Qing Minjing. When they received this news, Song Weizong happened to send back the news that Open Heavenly Gate intended to cooperate with them. The Song family and the Hong family discussed and decided to let Song Qingshu, who had just recovered from her injuries, lead Hong Zhu and the others to Open Heavenly Gate. Jin Beibei had always believed in her premonitions. This time, in order to persuade Song Huawu and Xiao Xiao to go to Open Heavenly Gate together, she tried all kinds of ways. In the end, the 2 girls could not resist her eloquence and had no choice but to agree. A group of female soldiers set off in a grandiose manner. Sect leader Xing, the second young master of the Song family, has come to visit and is waiting in the side hall. When Xing Beibei and Xiao Chun were discussing the sacrificial ceremony, a disciple of Open Heavenly Gate knocked on the door and came in. He reported respectfully, as the cultivation sects wanted to start the sacrificial ceremony as soon as possible, they moved relatively fast. Just 1 day later, Song Qingshu, who had recovered from her injuries, led a group of guards from the cultivation sects and escorted Hong Zhu, Hong Yan, and a few other girls with spiritual qi to Open Heavenly Gate and met up with Song Weizong. Elder Heaven Ancestor was speechless about Xiao Chen's straightforward character. Since someone would come to him, why would he waste his energy to go to their house? Moreover, he might not be able to settle everything even if he went there. This Xiao Chen was so stupid. Chapter 1275. Lady Xing waited for a while. When she saw that Song Qingshu was staring at Xiao Chen in shock and did not take the initiative to state the purpose of his visit, she could only say, "Young Master Song, I've troubled you to bring the sacrificial items here. You must be tired from the long journey, right? I wonder if you and your companions are used to the accommodations and food that the Awakening Heaven sect has prepared?" It's quite good. Sect leader Xing is very considerate." Little girl Xing's voice caused Song Qingshu to return to his senses. Only then did he realize that he had been a bit rash, so he hurriedly expressed his thanks. Little girl Xing waved her hand and indifferently said, "It's what I should do. If you have any special requests, feel free to mention them. I will do my best to make them better. Then I will thank sect leader Xing in advance." Song Qingshu took out an exquisite wooden box from his bosom and forced a smile on his face. "In order to congratulate you on becoming the new sect leader of the Awakening Heaven sect, our immortal sect has specially prepared a small congratulatory gift. I hope that sect leader Xing will kindly accept it." Little girl Xing was slightly startled. She stood up and received the box, then placed it on the table. Without opening it, she smiled and expressed her thanks. "Young Master Song is very thoughtful. The Awakening Heaven sect is very grateful for the congratulatory gift." Originally, Song Qingshu was just going through the motions. He wanted to use the gift as an opportunity to promote the relationship between the Immortal sect and the Awakening Heaven sect. Seeing that little girl Xing had accepted the box, He did not plan on saying anything more. He cupped his hands and prepared to leave. However, before he could open his mouth, he saw a hand suddenly reach out and pick up the box on the table. Song Qingshu was immediately startled. He opened his mouth to shout, only to see Xiao Chen swagger out from behind little girl Xing. "Let me take a look. What kind of things have been delivered?" Xiao Chen chuckled and raised his eyebrows. He casually picked up the wooden box and opened it in one go. "You, rude." Song Qingshu hadn't expected Xiao Chen to do this. Her eyes immediately burned with anger, and she glared fiercely at Xiao Chen. The sect master hadn't even said anything, yet you, a sect disciple, had casually opened a guest's gift. "Don't you know your place?" Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with Song Qingshu's accusations. He looked down at the things in the box and found that they were all precious treasures and a few rare healing pills. After carefully identifying the treasures in the wooden box, Xiao Chen curled his lips in disdain. If it was in the past, he might have thought that these things were quite high-end. However, during this period of time, under Sky's guidance, Xiao Chen had gradually learned to distinguish which herbs were relatively rare and which were common goods that weren't worth mentioning. He wasn't like in the past, where he viewed everything as a treasure. "I say, aren't your cultivation sects too stingy? These things can be found everywhere on the street. How can you take them out? Do you really think that our Awakening Heaven sect's sect master Xing hasn't seen anything good?" Xiao Chen snorted and casually threw the wooden box on the table. In reality, Xiao Chen's words were a bit exaggerated. The treasures in the box were not bad, but compared to the ones he had collected in the Venerable Realm, they were clearly several streets behind. Having already seen good things, Xiao Chen naturally didn't place these herbs in his eyes. "Arrogant fellow, this is a congratulatory gift from our sect to Sect Master Xing. You are just a small disciple. What right do you have to look through it? How many good things have you seen? What right do you have to say that these treasures are everywhere?" Song Qingshu felt humiliated and couldn't help but retort angrily. If it weren't for Sect Master Xing's face, Song Qingshu would have already beheaded Xiao Chen on the spot. A small fry from the Awakening Heaven sect, relying on the fact that he could stand by the sect master's side, dared to speak without thinking. Did he really think that their sect was easy to bully? "Of course I've seen a lot." Xiao Chen crossed his arms in front of his chest and expressionlessly said, "Our sect master Xing has traveled to famous mountains and rivers since she was young. She has seen countless rare and precious herbs. She has already lost interest in these things since she was 3 years old." Little girl Xing secretly rolled her eyes. Xiao Chen really knew how to talk. When did she run off to travel? Why don't I have any recollection of it? Sneaking another glance at the opened wooden box on the table, little girl Xing discovered that there were quite a few good herbs and pills inside. She couldn't help but mutter to herself, "Song Qingshu's congratulatory gift is quite good. Even if it's not good, it's still a token of goodwill. Why is Xiao Chen being so picky? Could it be that he and Song Qingshu have a grudge in the past? Isn't this not giving him any face?" Little girl Xing pondered over her own thoughts, but in Song Qingshu's eyes, her silence was seen as tacit approval of Xiao Chen. Song Qingshu was somewhat unhappy. How could he make a mistake when he sent a gift? However, he was currently in someone else's territory, so Song Qingshu endured and didn't flare up. He just casually cupped his hands and said, "Since the Awakening Heaven sect doesn't like the things of our sect, then you can do with this congratulatory gift. Goodbye." "Hey, wait a moment." Without waiting for Song Qingshu to leave, Xiao Chen suddenly called out to him. "Why are you leaving just like that? Considering that you're new here, we'll let bygones be bygones this time. Go and prepare another congratulatory gift. At least send some top-level heavenly materials and earthly treasures, cultivation manuals, top-grade elixirs, and so on. Bring all the valuable things over." "Valuable things? What do you think counts as valuable?" Song Qingshu was so angry that he laughed and asked coldly. Xiao Chen rubbed his chin and seemed to think seriously for a while before saying, "Well, it has to at least be able to enter the eyes of our sect master Xing." "My ass. Brat, I think you're really courting death. I already let you off in the Venerable Realm. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Song Qingshu was completely infuriated by Xiao Chen's attitude. He circulated his mental cultivation method and instantly displayed his venerable level 5 cultivation. A majestic pressure swept towards Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. It wasn't because of the pressure. After all, he was an expert of the profound ascension stage. To him, this little bit of pressure was basically negligible. It was just that Song Qingshu's impulsive attitude made Xiao Chen feel a little unhappy. Could it be that this brat still couldn't see the situation clearly? This was the awakening heaven sect's territory. He actually wanted to act rashly in front of the sect master Xing. Was this really okay? Sure enough, when the little girl felt the pressure, her face immediately darkened. She was very dissatisfied with Song Qingshu's behavior. She said coldly, "Young Master Song, isn't it a little inappropriate to teach a disciple of our sect in front of this sect master?" Chapter 1276. Although she was somewhat puzzled by Xiao Chen's mocking of Song Qingshu, Xing was naturally biased towards Xiao Chen's side. Moreover, she was very clear that Song Qingshu was definitely not Xiao Chen's opponent. Xing Gongzi had taken advantage of the fact that the two hadn't started fighting to resolve the conflict between the two sides. Xing Gongzi also wanted to save Song Qingshu's life. If Xiao Chen got angry and killed Song Qingshu, then the immortal cultivation sect would use this as a reason to make things difficult for them. Hearing Xing Gongzi's voice, Song Qingshu was stunned for a moment. His head, which had been clouded by anger, instantly sobered up. He also realized that what he had done wasn't very appropriate. Although he only wanted to teach Xiao Chen a lesson, they were currently in awakening heaven sect. If he made a move against a disciple in front of the sect master, it would be a serious matter. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the immortal cultivation sect was provoking awakening heaven sect. Apologies, sect master Xing. I was too impulsive. In order to avoid trouble, Song Qingshu took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He said indifferently, "I have never seen the behavior of your disciple before, so I was presumptuous and wanted to help sect master Xing teach him a lesson. I was overstepping my boundaries." Song Qingshu was somewhat dissatisfied with sect master Xing's behavior of shielding his disciple. Therefore, although he apologized, his words were still full of sarcasm. He didn't feel apologetic at all. "Forget it. Both of you are in the wrong. Just restrain yourselves a little." Xing Gongzi waved her hand and mediated. She could naturally hear the sarcasm in Song Qingshu's words. However, Xing Gongzi didn't care too much in order to keep the peace. She only pretended that she didn't hear it and casually said, "No matter how heavy the congratulatory gift from the immortal cultivation sect is, this sect master is very grateful. I will accept it. Young Master Song must be tired after a whole day of traveling. You should return to your room and rest." Song Qingshu wasn't stupid. Anyone could see that Lady Xing was biased towards Xiao Chen. He felt even more disdain for Xiao Chen's act of living off a woman. However, he had no other choice. He could only cup his hands at Lady Xing and say, "If that's the case, I'll take my leave." After saying that, Song Qingshu glared fiercely at Xiao Chen again. Thinking that he would teach this brat a lesson sooner or later, he stormed off in a huff. "Amazing! You actually managed to escape unscathed after acting tough in front of this young master. Your luck is pretty good." As he watched Song Qingshu leave angrily, the corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up as he mocked in a voice that was neither loud nor soft. Song Qingshu hadn't gone far, so he naturally heard Xiao Chen's deliberate words. However, he could only pretend that he didn't hear it now. He repeatedly thought about how he could find an opportunity to beat up Xiao Chen. It would be best if Xing Gongzi didn't find out. As he pondered, he returned to his residence. Song Qingshu couldn't vent his anger, so he sat unhappily in the outer hall. As long as he thought about Xiao Chen's arrogant and despotic face, Song Qingshu would feel a fire from the soles of his feet all the way to the top of his head. He was very unhappy. In order to calm his mood, Song Qingshu simply picked up the teapot on the table and poured himself a cup of water. When he was about to drink it, he was scalded again. "Damn it, even a cup dares to bully me." The infuriated Song Qingshu slammed the cup on the ground and smashed it into pieces. Qingshu, what's wrong with you? Who are you so angry with for no reason? Song Weizong heard the commotion and quickly walked out from the inner room. He looked strangely at the broken cup on the ground and asked in astonishment. In Song Weizong's impression, although Song Qingshu was usually a little arrogant, he was still quite rational. Even when he was angry, he had never smashed a cup. This time, it seemed a little abnormal. Hongzhu and the other women were chatting in the room. When they heard the commotion, they also ran out to see what was going on. In the end, they found Song Qingshu fuming with anger and smashing cups. The women all revealed looks of contempt on their faces. This person was too much. How could he throw a tantrum in Qi Tianmen's residence? He even smashed other people's cups. Did he really think that this was his own Song family, and he could do whatever he wanted? Grandfather, you really can't blame me for this. It's all because of that follower of sect Master Xing. He's simply too much. Song Qingshu's anger had yet to dissipate. She slammed the table heavily and vented her anger. What did you say? Sect leader Xing's follower? Did you provoke Ajian? Song Weizong was shocked and could not help but break out in a cold sweat for Song Qingshu. The tragic scene of West Mountain Mad Demon being beaten up was still vivid in his mind. He did not expect that Song Qingshu would offend Ajian so soon after coming to Qi Tian sect. Song Weizong was also really anxious. He immediately said with a sullen face, "Before you set off from the Song family, I had already told you. After you arrived at Qi Tianmen, I reminded you again that you must not have any conflict with Ajian. Not only is he the mastermind behind Qi Tianmen, but his strength is also outstanding. Even West Mountain Mad Demon is just a piece of trash in his hands. How could you be so careless? Hurry up and apologize to him." Grandfather, what are you talking about? I didn't see Ajian. Besides, you have already reminded me so many times. How could I make such a mistake again? Song Qingshu saw that Song Weizong was so anxious that his face was red. He quickly waved his hand and explained, "The person I am talking about is Xiao Chun. He's the fellow I mentioned to you when I returned from the Exalt Secret Realm." It turned out that Song Qingshu had been seriously injured in the Venerable Realm. After Hongzhu and the others carried him back for treatment, he found a time to talk to Song Weizong about everything that happened in the Venerable Realm. Naturally, he mentioned that Xiao Chun had helped the women break through. When Song Weizong heard about this, he was also very surprised. He repeatedly reminded Song Qingshu that if he met Xiao Chun again in the future, he must invite him back to the Song family. After all, Xiao Chun's ability could be said to be rare in the world. If he could be used by the Song family, or even the entire immortal cultivation sect, it would save a lot of detours for the disciples of the sect. Before Song Weizong could speak, Song Huawu, who was standing to the side, suddenly heard Xiao Chun's name. Her whole body trembled and she rushed over, grabbed Song Qingshu's collar and asked loudly, "Song Qingshu, what did you say just now? Xiao Chun is also in Qi Tianmen? You have seen him?" Hearing Song Huawu shout, the women also came to their senses. They all had different expressions. Before Song Qingshu could answer, Jin Beibei's loud voice rang out. "Ow, ow, ow! Xiao Chun's cousin-in-law is really here. Super Prophet Bei's sixth sense is working again." Chapter 1277. Jin Beibei was so excited that she almost danced. She quickly ran to Song Qingshu, grabbed his sleeve, and asked impatiently, "Hey Song something, have you seen my cousin Chung Minjing? Is she with Xiao Chun's cousin-in-law? Are they married? Did they have a baby?" Hongzhu and Xiefei looked at each other, feeling very surprised too. Didn't they hear that Xiao Chun was in the Jia clan? Why did he come to Open Heaven sect and work as leader Xing's subordinate? The Jia clan was one of the three major clans, which was supposed to be hostile to Open Heaven sect, the leader of the dark sects. Xiao Chun was a bit far away. Did he offend someone from Open Heaven sect in the Venerable Realm? Was that why he was captured? Shen Jingxian did not know much about the situation. She had thought that she might never see Xiao Chun again. She did not expect to hear that he was also here. She was a bit excited. Unlike Jean Beibei and Song Huawu, she was not as emotional as Jean Beibei and Song Huawu. She just blushed and clutched her sleeves tightly. Her slightly trembling body showed the surging emotions in her heart. Lin and Xiao Xiao, on the other hand, looked a bit unnatural. Although they had received the news of Xiao Chen again, and he was already very close to them, they were not particularly happy. Lin's impression of Xiao Chen had always been his scary look. Although she knew that Xiao Chen was not what she imagined, she did not know how to face him for the moment. As for Xiao Xiao, she was a bit bothered by Jean Beibei's words. Whenever she thought that Xiao Chen was together with Chung Minjing, she would feel sour in her heart. The calmest person in the entire hall should be that little girl Hong Yan. She didn't care much about the big pervert Xiao Chen. But just like Hong Zhu, she was surprised that Xiao Chen was in the open heaven gate. During this time, Hong Yan learned that there were so many girls around her who liked Xiao Chen. Although her hatred for him didn't decrease, she was more curious about him. Song Qingshu paid no attention to Jean Beibei's surprised behavior. Instead, she looked at Song Huawu and said in a low voice, "Huawu, I know you like that kid Xiao Chen, but you've really misjudged him this time. Not only does he oppose our immortal cultivation sect in all aspects, but he has also become a lackey of Awakening Heaven sect, hugging sect master Xing's thigh, and flirting with him." Oh, Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law has caught the eye of the sect leader again? My cousin-in-law is so awesome. Jean Beibei waved her little fist in the air and cheered loudly. Humph, in the secret realm of the Venerable Realm, if I had remembered that he was the guy that Huawu liked, I would have killed him a long time ago. Song Qingshu snorted. Then, she said to Song Huawu in a gentle voice, "Huawu, you are my only biological sister. I don't want you to be fooled by that scumbag Xiao Chen. Although he is in open heaven sect right now, I advise you not to go to him." Song Qingshu had always been disgusted by the arrogant Xiao Chen. Now that she knew that he had so many women around him, and that he was hooking up with the leader of Open Heaven sect, she was even more convinced that he was not a good guy. How could Hua Wu be with such a scumbag? Absolutely not. Thank you for your kindness, but Xiao Chen and I have always been in a free relationship. I won't mind no matter how many girlfriends he has. Song Huawu had calmed down a little. She let go of Song Qingshu's collar and said calmly, "Now, you only need to tell me where Xiao Chen is. You don't have to worry about anything else." Song Huawu's eyes were extremely firm at this moment. Song Qingshu's accusation did not seem to affect her at all. She still insisted on her idea. "Exactly. I didn't criticize you before, but I can't stand it this time. Song Qingshu, aren't you being too nosy? Besides, Xiao Chen saved your life before. I didn't expect that you would speak ill of him behind his back. How ungentlemanly you are." Hong Zhu rolled his eyes. Apparently, he was also very dissatisfied with Song Qingshu's attitude. Right. We like to play threes, fourths, and fifths with our cousin-in-law. You don't have a girlfriend, but you are jealous of your cousin-in-law. That is not the right attitude." Jean Beibei shook her head and lectured him. However, after she said a few words, Jean Beibei suddenly felt that her hand was secretly pinched by Xiao Xiao. She turned around and asked in confusion, "Xiao Xiao, why did you pinch me? Am I wrong?" Xiao Xiao opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she did not say it. In the end, she said helplessly, "Well, forget it. You can play if you like." Although she did not say it, Xiao Xiao was still a little bit worried. Jean Beibei was too imaginative. She talked about this and that in front of two men. Didn't she see that the other girls were all blushing? She even said it in such a loud voice. She really had no eyesight at all. "Huawu, I'm thinking for you and the cultivation sects, not for myself. Why did you?" Song Qingshu tried hard to persuade Song Huawu with a bitter face. He really could not figure out what was on his sister's mind. That Xiao Chen was absolutely a scumbag. What was so good about him that Huawu liked him so much? Before Song Qingshu could finish his words, Song Huawu waved her hand and interrupted him impatiently. "Song Qingshu, I'll repeat it to you again. I've never regarded you as my brother, so stop preaching to me. Now you just need to tell me and us sisters where to find Xiao Chen. I won't listen to anything else even if you tell me." Huawu is right. Song Qingshu, Just tell us quickly. Don't waste our time. Hong Zhu and the other girls echoed. This Song Qingshu was too long-winded. They really didn't want to listen to his nonsense anymore. If it weren't for the fact that they had just arrived at the open heavenly gate and were unable to move freely, they would have rushed out to find Xiao Chun. Well, okay. Song Qingshu sighed gloomily and said, Xiao Chun is in sect leader Xing's room, but they seem to be discussing something important. You. Before Song Qingshu finished his words, Hong Zhu and the other girls had already run out of the hall. They were not in the mood to listen to him at all. They ran as fast as the wind and disappeared in an instant. The hall, which was originally full of people, became empty in an instant. Apart from Song Qingshu, who was livid, only Song Weizong, Ke Lin, and Hong Yin were left in the hall. Hong Yin was not interested in meeting Xiao Chun. She was not on good terms with Xiao Chun and did not want to see him again. Therefore, she did not go with Hong Zhu and the other girls. Instead, she prepared to return to her room and cultivate quietly. Chapter 1278. As for Ke Lin, her movements were a beat too slow. By the time she reacted, the hall was already empty. Ke Lin looked around in a panic. She bit her lower lip and pondered for a moment. Although she felt that it would be a little awkward to see Xiao Chun, there was no one close to her at the moment. The only person she could get close to was Xiao Chun. After thinking for a while, she greeted Hong Yin and walked out of the hall, carefully following behind Hong Zhu and the other women. After the women ran out of the residence, they immediately found a disciple of the Awakening Heaven sect. After asking for the location of little Miss Xing's room, they all rushed in that direction. Song Qingshu's words were stuck in her throat. She stared at the empty door with an ugly expression on her face. Qingshu, to tell you the truth, I also feel that you didn't handle this matter properly. Seeing that Song Qingshu was still sulking, Song Weizong shook his head and said earnestly, Think about it, Xiao Chun saved your life. At the very least, he is your benefactor. No matter how much you dislike him, you should go and thank him. Grandfather, you didn't see how arrogant Xiao Chun was just now. He didn't care about me at all. How am I supposed to thank someone like him? Song Qingshu gritted her teeth in anger when she recalled the scene just now. She couldn't accept Song Weizong's advice at all. Qingshu, what you said is wrong. Song Weizong lectured in a low voice. How others act arrogantly is their business. You can't waste your courtesy. We cultivators can't be as selfish as the ghost cultivators. Yes, Grandfather Song is right. Hong Yin nodded and agreed with Song Weizong. I was also present in the Venerable Realm. At that time, third brother Hong and second young master Song had already fainted. If it wasn't for Xiao Chun driving away that ferocious beast, we might have been left there and never returned. Although she did not quite approve of Xiao Chun, Hong Yin still understood the principle of repaying a drop of kindness with a gushing spring after receiving a drop of water from him. Song Qingshu looked at Hong Yin in confusion and asked, Hong Yin, why are you speaking up for Xiao Chun? You've seen that guy's temper. He's the kind of guy who won't forgive when he's in the right. Even if he's being unreasonable, he'll still argue. He never considers other people's feelings. I can't communicate with him. Actually, I don't think he's that unreasonable. At most, he's a little arrogant. Hong Yin frowned. She looked at Song Qingshu and said, Even if he really is that kind of person, he did save all of us in the venerable mystic realm. No matter what, we should thank him, shouldn't we? If you don't want to see him alone, why don't we go together? In fact, Hong Yin had her own reasons for making this suggestion. Although she didn't dare to meet Xiao Chun, ever since Xiao Chun left in a hurry in the Venerable Realm, she had been thinking about thanking him. Since there was such an opportunity, Hong Yin wanted to bring Song Qingshu along. At least with someone to boost her courage, it wouldn't be too awkward. Oh, Hong Yin is right. We cultivators always know how to repay kindness. We can't let others be disappointed. Song Weizong nodded in agreement with Hong Yan's words. He turned around and patted Song Qingshu's shoulder. He said calmly, Think about it carefully. Once you've made up your mind, go talk to Xiao Chun with Hong Yan. Even if he's not willing to help the cultivators, maybe you two can become good friends? After persuading Song Qingshu, Song Weizong turned around and returned to his room. He still had to study the sacrificial ceremony method carefully, so he didn't care too much about these trivial matters. Since it was a matter between the young people, he would let them solve it themselves. Song Qingshu didn't speak for a long time. His expression changed several times, and he couldn't decide what to do. On one hand, he felt that his grandfather's words were reasonable, but on the other hand, Xiao Chun was too arrogant. If his temper flared up and he couldn't help but injure Xiao Chun, then not only would he offend the Awakening Heaven sect Master Xing, Hong Zhu and the others would definitely condemn him in both word and writing, criticizing him in all sorts of ways. While Song Qingshu was hesitating, unable to come to a decision, Hong Zhu and the other girls were already filled with joy and excitement. Like a flock of butterflies, they flew across a garden and walked along the weeping willow path, next to the man-made lake, for the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Finally, they arrived at the door of Xing Girl's room. Jean Bebe ran to the door first. When she was about to push the door open, a roar suddenly echoed not far away. The few girls turned around, only to see a team of guards wearing the uniform of Awakening sect running close. They stared at them warily and shouted, "Who are you? What's your purpose in coming to sect leader Xing's room?" "Young man, we are all the girlfriends of Xiao Chen's cousin-in-law." Jean Bebe waved her hands and said in a hurry, "Stop asking so many questions. Just let us in." Hardly had she concluded her sentence when Jean Bebe was about to barge into the room in a hurry. However, before she took 2 steps closer, the captain of guards had already stopped her. "What nonsense are you talking about? What girlfriends and cousin-in-law? This is the room of sect leader Xing of Awakening sect. Why is your cousin-in-law here?" The more the captain of guards listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. Why was the girl talking so incoherently that he could not even understand what she was saying? "I know that this is your leader's room. My cousin-in-law is right inside." Jean Bebe grew anxious. She pushed away the captain's hand and charged into the room. "Stop right there." The captain of guards blinked and stopped in front of Jean Bebe again. With a grave face, he revealed the cultivation of the peak of the 5th level of the Devil King realm and scolded coldly. "How did you get into Awakening sect? Are you spies sent by other sects? Surround them." The last sentence was spoken to his subordinates. The group of guards immediately spread out upon hearing this, and they glared fiercely at Jean Bebe and the others. They were waiting for the guard captain's order, and were prepared to capture them at any moment. "Cousin-in-law, Bebe is here for you. Don't hide in the room anymore. Come out and explain. If you don't come out, your favorite Jean Bebe will be taken away." Seeing that the situation was not right, Jean Bebe immediately took a deep breath and shouted into the room, "Squeak!" The captain of guards was both shocked and infuriated to see that Jean Bebe was still yelling. He was about to give the order to capture them when he suddenly heard the door open behind him. Then a man and a woman strode out. They were exactly Xiao Chun and Lady Xing. Chapter 1279. "Bebe, it's really you. What are you doing here?" Hearing the familiar shout, Xiao Chun was startled. After he walked out and saw the scene in front of him, he was so surprised that his mouth was wide open. Pushing away the captain of the bodyguards in front of him, Xiao Chun turned around and looked at the few girls behind Jean Bebe. With disbelief on his face, he rubbed his eyes and took a closer look. In the end, he blurted out in shock, "Hua Wu, Xiao Xiao, Kerlin, how did you guys end up together? What's going on here? Hongzhu consort Xia and Jingxian, why are you here too?" Xiao Chun felt as if he was in a dream when he saw the face that he had been extremely familiar with, but had not seen for a long time appear before his eyes once again. He thought that it was an illusion set up by a cultivator expert like him. He hurriedly released his divine sense and scanned the surroundings. However, he did not find any traces of strangers at all. What was going on? Xing was not familiar with Jean Bebe and the rest of them. Therefore, she was confused too. However, when she turned around, she happened to see Kerlin, who was standing at the back of the girls. Her eyes immediately shone. She knew Kerlin. Wasn't she the pretty girl from the breakfast stall that Xiao Chen had a crush on? After connecting the dots, Xing basically guessed the identity of the various beautiful girls in front of her. She was not as shocked as Xiao Chen. Instead, she winked at the captain of the bodyguards and gave him a few instructions in a low voice. The captain of the bodyguards had thought that he would be punished for mistaking an honorable guest. He was feeling uneasy, but as it turned out, not only was leader Xing not punishing him, but he was also delegating tasks to him. Feeling both grateful and ashamed, he immediately left with his subordinates in a hurry to carry out leader Xing's orders. Xiao Chen, is it really you? I'm not dreaming, am I? The courtyard was silent for a moment. Then Song Huawu's emotional voice suddenly rang out. The rims of her eyes reddened in an instant, and tears kept rolling down her cheeks. She rushed to Xiao Chen with large strides, and carefully looked at him a few times. Like a young swallow returning to the forest, she threw herself into his arms and sobbed softly. Xiao Xiao was a step slower. She originally wanted to throw herself into Xiao Chen's arms, but Song Huawu beat her to it. She had no choice but to walk over and hold Xiao Chen's hand. She choked and said, "Brother, where have you been these days? Why didn't he call his family? We all miss you very much. My grandfather and my father have sent many people to search for your whereabouts. They're almost going crazy with anxiety." Ao. Cousin-in-law Xiao Chen, is that really you? Jean Bebe rubbed her eyes hard. Although she was usually carefree, she was so excited that hot tears were brimming in her eyes right now. Jean Bebe had been standing in front of Xiao Chen. Right now, Song Huawu was in Xiao Chen's arms, and Xiao Xiao was next to him. Therefore, she simply took a detour and walked to Xiao Chen's back. Then, she suddenly jumped on his back and hugged Xiao Chen tightly. She shouted, "Cousin, where did you and cousin Minjing go? When I returned to the villa, I found that you were both not there. I thought that the Cheng family and the Xiao family had gone bankrupt. Hey, Bebe, you seem to have grown bigger again. You are much heavier now." Caught unprepared, Xiao Chen was strangled by Jean Bebe heavily. He immediately felt that it was hard for him to breathe. However, the soft and fragrant scent on his back made him feel rather comfortable. How long had it been since Jean Bebe called him cousin? 1 year? 2 years? While supporting Jean Bebe in case she fell off, Xiao Chen had mixed feelings in his heart. He had imagined what it would be like to meet the girls again countless times. But he did not expect that they would show up at the same time. Lin Kuer stood at the edge of the courtyard, silently looking at Xiao Chen. Although she also felt an indescribable impulse in her heart when they reunited after such a long time, and really wanted to rush up and hug him tightly, she still endured it. She still stood where she was, and did not act as boldly as the other girls. Besides, Kerlin did not dare do that. After all, she was not Xiao Chen's family. She was not even Xiao Chen's official girlfriend. The two of them were merely classmates. Although Xiao Chen had confessed his love to her before, Kerlin did not say yes at that time. Therefore, she did not have an appropriate identity to do something as bold as Song Huawu. She could only stand aside and watch Xiao Chen quietly. As for Shen Jingxian and Xie Fei, they were not as excited as the other girls. They simply observed the scene with a smile on their faces. They had just met Xiao Chen a few days ago. Although the joy of their reunion was intense too, they did not forget themselves. Therefore, they naturally gave up the special power to Jean Bebe and the rest of them, who had been searching for Xiao Chen for such a long time. After all, they had found Xiao Chen now, and they would have a lot of time to spend with him. There was no need to rush. Naturally, Hangzhu did not make any big movements. Instead, he stood where he was and watched Xiao Chen being surrounded by a group of girls with great interest. Hangzhu very much wanted to find an opportunity to tease Xiao Chen and tease this little boy. However, when he saw him hugging Song Huawu and the other girls tightly, he somehow felt touched and a little jealous, as if he was envious that they could be so intimate with Xiao Chen. In fact, Hangzhu also had a vague good impression of Xiao Chen, but he did not think that they had reached the level of intimacy yet. Among all the people present, the one who felt the most uncomfortable should be Miss Xing, who was standing behind Xiao Chen. Seeing that he was so busy with Song Huawu in his arms, and Xiao Xiao holding his hand tightly, and even carrying Jean Beibei, the beautiful girl with the face of an angel and the body of a devil, Miss Xing felt a little uncomfortable. However, Miss Xing did not show it obviously, because it was normal for an expert like Xiao Chen to have multiple wives and concubines in the martial arts world. She had long been used to it. However, she could not help but feel a little jealous when she encountered such a scene. Moreover, Xiao Chen did not have multiple wives and concubines at all. There were already 8 women standing in the yard, together with Cheng Minjing, Ling Qianxue, and the others in the backyard. They could almost form a female army. Miss Xing could not help but secretly roll her eyes at Xiao Chen. Let's see if you can handle it. Beibei, why did you come to the Heavenly Awakening Gate? Huh? Xiao Xiao is here too? Just when Xiao Chen was flustered and did not know what to do, a surprised voice suddenly sounded. It turned out that Cheng Minjing had rushed over. Wow, so many people. I didn't expect Sister Sour to have so many sisters. My husband Xiao Chen is really awesome. Tian Sour exclaimed as she popped her head out from behind Cheng Minjing. Ling Qianxue, Ling and Tang Tang also followed her into Miss Xing's yard. Chapter 1280. As it turned out, Miss Xing had guessed that those people were Xiao Chen's old friends. That was why she had asked the captain of the guards to summon Cheng Minjing and the rest of them from the backyard. Minjing. Cheng Minjing was looking around when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. She turned around, only to discover that Xin Jingxian was walking toward her in delight. Jingxian, why are you here too? Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Cheng Minjing's eyes shone. She also ran to Xin Jingxian in a hurry. The two of them soon held hands. They were both excited to reunite with their best friends who had not seen each other for a long time. Tang Tang and the other girls found an empty space in the yard and stood still. They had all seen that Xiao Chen was surrounded by a bunch of beautiful girls, but they were not very surprised. They had heard about the past from Xiao Chen on their way to explore the inner martial arts world. Therefore, they were rather calm at this moment. Ow! 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 Cousin Minjing, I finally get to see you. Beibei misses you so much that I've almost gone crazy. Although Jean Beibei said that, she did not intend to leave Xiao Chen's shoulder at all. She was still hugging him tightly, and only waved one of her hands as a greeting. Beibei, hurry up and get down. You are a girl. What are you doing in broad daylight? What are you doing? Seeing Jean Beibei's behavior, Cheng Minjing had no time to catch up with Xin Jingxian anymore. She immediately scolded Jean Beibei with her hands on her hips. It was obvious that she was very dissatisfied with Jean Beibei's behavior. Forget it, Minjing. Beibei has always been doing whatever she wants. You know that. Besides, she hasn't seen Xiao Chen for a long time. It's rare for her to be so excited. Just let her be. Xin Jingxian carelessly tucked her long hair behind her ear. With a smile on her face, she shook Cheng Minjing's hand and said gently, No, Jingxian, look. Cheng Minjing turned around. She was about to complain to Xin Jingxian about Jean Beibei's lack of propriety, when she saw Jean Beibei flipping her hair. Her eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She couldn't help but murmur, Jingxian, you were already very beautiful. How come you seem to have become even more beautiful? Xin Jingxian pursed her lips and smiled. Just as she was about to reply, little Miss Xing's voice suddenly rang out. All right, everyone, let's not stay outside. If you have anything to say, let's talk inside. There are often guards and disciples walking around here. It wouldn't be appropriate to let them see it. After she finished speaking, little Miss Xing generously gestured for everyone to enter her room. Afterwards, she ordered a disciple to bring some snacks and fruits to entertain everyone. Little Miss Xing's room was quite spacious. However, after more than 10 people crowded in, the room was somewhat full. Thankfully, other than Xiao Chen, the rest of the guests were all slender and beautiful women. Even though they were crowded together, they were still very pleasing to the eye. Also, the girls did not care too much about it. The moment they entered the room, they split into several groups and chatted with each other. After all, some of them were very good friends in the past. They had been reunited after a long time, and they had all experienced different lives. Naturally, they began to talk about the stories that had happened recently. After entering the room, Xiao Chun was originally full of questions. He planned to ask them one by one about what had happened when he was away, how Song Huawu, Jin Beibei, and Xiao Xiao met each other, and how they had come here together with Hong Zhu and the others. However, before he could ask any questions, he had already learned the whole story from the chatter of the girls. Xiao Chun could not help but sigh inwardly. The fate of the world was really wonderful. People who were originally not even close to each other had become good sisters, who depended on each other because of him. Tang Tang and Shin Jingxian chatted for a while. Then, she rolled her eyes and glimpsed a person standing silently in the corner. After taking a closer look, she found that it was Ke Lin. She walked over and greeted her with a smile. "Sister Ke, why are you standing here alone in a daze? Come and chat with us." "Hello, Sister Tang Tang. I'm not very familiar with them, so I won't go over. It's fine to stand here." Ke Lin blushed. She hurriedly waved her hand and said in a low voice in embarrassment. Seeing Ke Lin's reaction, Tang Tang shook her head with a smile and said, "I haven't seen you for such a long time, but you are still so timid and shy. I really don't know what to do with you. By the way, how are your parents? Are they still selling noodles in the morning market street?" A trace of joy appeared on Ke Lin's face when she mentioned her parents. Her tone also became lively. "Thank you for your concern, Sister Tang Tang. My parents are in good health. It's all thanks to Sister Hong Zhu for providing help to my family." "Ah, Hong Zhu. What kind of help can she provide you?" Tang Tang showed a very surprised expression. She had heard Xiao Chun mention Hong Zhu 2 days ago. But how did she get involved with Ke Lin's parents? "Sister Hong Zhu specially found someone to cure my father's old illness. She also changed my family to a new house and let my parents move out of the shanty town. I really don't know how to thank her." Ke Lin's voice was very grateful. Obviously, she was deeply impressed by Hong Zhu's help. "Are you serious? Why is Hong Zhu so good to you? Does she owe you a big favor?" Tang Tang felt even more puzzled. Hong Zhu's behavior really surprised her. Logically speaking, Ke Lin was just an ordinary person in the secular world. Basically, it was impossible for her to be friends with Hong Zhu. "It's not like that." Ke Lin shook her head and explained. "Actually, it's like this. I was captured by a bad guy. Later, Sister Hong Zhu and another sister, Li Xiener, risked their lives to save me. They even got seriously injured. They said that I was a woman with spiritual energy, so I would be captured by the bad guys. Then, following that, Lin Kuo recounted how she had been captured by the evil cultivators in the secular world, and how she had been rescued by Hong Zhu. She had even been brought to see Consort Xia, and how they had returned to the inner martial world with her. However, after arriving at the Hong family, because her strength was too low, the head of the Hong family judged that she was really not suitable to enter the venerable realm to train. Therefore, she stayed in the Hong family with Jin Beibei and the others. She did not go out until 2 days ago. She also learned about the experience of Hong Zhu and the others in the secret realm later. After listening to her, Tang Tang could not help but sympathize with Ke Lin's tortuous experience. When she was about to comfort her, Xiao Chen's voice suddenly sounded. "Ke Lin, are you sure that Lu Shuangshuang was also captured by the evil practitioners? Do you know where she was taken?" In the process of Lin Kuo's narration, she also mentioned that Lu Shuangshuang had also been captured. Although the room was rather noisy, Xiao Chen's acute hearing was still able to clearly hear what everyone was saying. Lin Kuo's narration was also heard by him without missing a single word. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.